Chapter 72. Yuman's problem wasn't that big. It was just that Sister Chi's younger brother was also studying at the school. For some reason, he had taken a liking to Yuman and started to pursue her. Then did you agree? Ding Ming asked. Yuman smiled bitterly. How could I agree? Ding Ming nodded. This group of people didn't look like good people. It was reasonable for Yuman to not agree. But Lei Bao and the others have to charge a fee. Yuman suddenly blurted out. Charge a fee. Ding Ming was curious again. What fee? Yuman helplessly said, many students in the school, after they become origin ability users, they will look for this student to collect private fees. They say that it's better to impart cultivation experience, but the target of these fees are the students whose family conditions aren't that good. Ding Ming still couldn't understand. The school doesn't care about them? Yuman frowned. The school can't do anything about it. This is voluntary. Besides, the paid service is also tacitly approved by the school. However, if anyone refuses, they will deal with that person. This is completely a protection fee. Ding Ming understood a little. To put it bluntly, that Sister Chi was using this to threaten Yuman. No wonder she said that she had already taken care of him. It seemed that Sister Chi also thought of him as a new student at the school. Yuman sighed. It's more or less a protection fee. Ding Ming couldn't help but sigh. He always thought that this was only the case in the refugee camps, shelters, colonies, and Heijin base. He didn't expect that unfairness also existed in normal society. It seems that this Lei Bao is also a labor leader. Yuman asked, what kind of leader? Nothing. Ding Ming quickly waved his hand. Sister man, let's go. It's important to listen to the class. Unfairness didn't only exist among the students, but also among the teachers. In a dilapidated building on the west side of the teaching area, Ding Ming finally saw the so-called classical swordsmanship classroom. He couldn't believe his eyes. This two-story building was actually a classroom. Yuman's house was much better than this classroom. Are we in the wrong place? Ding Ming asked suspiciously. Yuman said helplessly, classical swordsmanship is a very unpopular major. Not many people like it. It's because there aren't many students who want to learn it, so the resources provided by the school are very limited. It's already considered good this year. All right. Ding Ming was also helpless. Since they were already here, they might as well go in. The classroom seemed to be less than 500 square meters, which was similar to the training room of the vast martial arts school. However, the facilities were far inferior to the vast martial arts school. The broken windows were actually made of primitive glass, and several of them were broken. At the very least, there was no sound insulation. There was a large empty space in the middle of the room that didn't even have a table or a chair. There was only a row of cotton mats that were used as seats. As for the podium, there was only a broken wooden table in front of the podium. It was comparable to the small table in the wooden house. The worst thing was that there wasn't even an optical computer. Ding Ming was really curious. How would a classical swordsmanship teacher teach? In fact, this wasn't the most important thing. What made Ding Ming dumbfounded was that there were only 6 students sitting on the cotton mats in front of him. No matter how unpopular a subject was, it shouldn't be this unpopular, right? The number of students who came to listen to the class didn't even exceed 2 digits. In fact, this couldn't be blamed on the school for being stingy. After all, this was an era where origin ability and technology coexisted. Even if it was the cold weapons on the battlefield, such as alloy blades, vibration blades, and serrated swords, which were developed by technology, they still had decent combat strength. Who would study classical swordsmanship after eating so much? That couldn't be called a practical subject. It should be called a cultural subject. Thus, this class was called Classical Swordsmanship Theory class. The 2 words theory were the main point. As for the word swordsmanship, please ignore it. The teacher quickly walked in. He was an old man with a head full of white hair. His eyes were pale and weak, and his body was short and stooped. He walked with a limp, looking like he was suffering from serious illness. Yuman had already told Ding Ming before. The teacher's name was Zhao Yu, a descendant of the Chinese. He was originally a soldier. Many years ago, he was seriously injured in the battle with the devouring world on the front lines and was infected with a highly toxic poison. Because he didn't receive timely treatment, most of the origin energy in his body had dissipated. Of the two legs that were amputated, only one of them was repaired. The other had to be replaced with an alloy prosthesis. The military might have considered his outstanding military service, so after he retired, they arranged for him to return to his hometown on planet TT-12 as a teacher at the Leaston Academy. He could be considered to be enjoying his old age. The school also respected his dedication to the Empire. Even the principal respectfully addressed him as Elder Zhao. In fact, Elder Zhao had long lost interest in teaching. Over the years, there were fewer and fewer students who were willing to come to learn classical swordsmanship, causing him to be disheartened. Teaching had long been reduced from actual combat practice to theoretical lectures. Last week, there were only 3 students who came to listen, and he only spoke for 10 minutes before the 3 students ran away. Today was still not bad. There were actually 8 students waiting for him in the classroom, which made him feel a lot better. Thus, when he went up to the podium, he seemed to be a little spirited. Since ancient times, the sword has been a gentleman among soldiers. Since the birth of mankind, the weapon we used was the sword. It can be said that the sword has a history of tens of thousands of years, and it hasn't been eliminated until now. This shows the value of its existence and its use in actual combat. It has washed away the smell of blood and left behind an elegant appearance. With agility and elegance as its priority, the 5-minute opening lecture was indeed effective. 3 students directly turned off their wristbands, simply got up and left. However, Elder Zhao didn't care at all. He had seen this situation countless times, so he continued his lecture. Why can the sword play a role on the battlefield? That is, your armor may be broken by the enemy, your guns may be out of ammunition, your aircraft may not have enough power, and your origin energy may not operate smoothly. But the sword won't. It is the most loyal and will always be by your side. As long as you need it, it will be at your disposal at any time. Another 2 students stood up and walked out of the classroom. The situation on the battlefield changes rapidly. The most dangerous thing is to be in close combat with the enemy. You don't have time to think. The only thing you could do is pick up a weapon and quickly meet the enemy. At this time, the most convenient and fastest weapon is your cold weapon. After all, the Academy's ultimate goal was to train origin ability users. The students were also realistic. Seeing that they couldn't learn any practical skills, the last student turned off his wristband and sighed helplessly as he got up. At least this male student was very cultured. As he got up, he bowed. Teacher Zhao, it's almost time for my next class. Thank you very much for your teaching. I'll take my leave first. Now, only Ding Meng and Yu Man were left in the empty classroom. In fact, Yu Man was also drowsy from listening to the lecture, but seeing Ding Meng's overflowing interest, she didn't want to be a deserter, so she patiently continued to listen. Of course, at this time, Elder Zhao was no longer in the mood to lecture. However, seeing Ding Meng's focused expression, he couldn't help but ask, "This student looks very unfamiliar. I've never seen you before. Are you new, student?" Yu Man quickly stood up and explained, "Hello, Teacher Zhao. His name is Ding Meng. He's not a student of our academy. He's my cousin. He's here to listen to the lecture." Someone who wasn't a student of the academy actually came to listen to the lecture? Elder Zhao's interest was piqued. "Student Ding, do you usually practice cold weapons?" Ding Meng scratched his head in embarrassment. "Hello, Teacher Zhao. I usually practice with a sword." Elder Zhao was even more curious. Why would someone who likes to use a sword come here to listen to a swordsmanship lecture? Chapter 73. Ding Meng pondered and said, "According to Mr. Zhao, the situation on the battlefield changes rapidly. I may face all kinds of enemies, and the enemies may use all kinds of weapons. Swords may be one of them. If I am not familiar with swords, the situation will become very dangerous. But if I know more about swordsmanship, my saber skills will inevitably improve." There was a trace of appreciation in Mr. Zhao's gray eyes. "Correct, very correct. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Mr. Ding, your theoretical level is not low. Are you interested in learning classical swordsmanship?" Of course he was interested. Ding Meng was now hungry. As long as it was useful, he would learn it, whether it was theoretical or practical. The so-called classical swordsmanship was actually very different from modern swordsmanship. The difference lay in the sword itself. Nowadays, the mainstream cold weapons were alloy blades and vibration sabers. As the name implied, these weapons were made of multi-element alloys, which were extremely hard and sharp. They could easily cut ordinary armor or steel plates. Weapons like vibration sabers had crystal power devices inside, and the blade could operate at a high speed of thousands of times per second, which was equivalent to a laser-cutting saw. To put it bluntly, these weapons did not have high requirements for the user, as long as you could afford the sky-high price. However, the classical swordsmanship was the opposite. The sword itself was not important. What was important was the personal cultivation, understanding, and application of the sword, because compared with the sword, the talent was more important. No matter how good a weapon was, it still needed people to use it. The user decided whether a weapon was trash or a sharp weapon. Not only did Ding Meng agree with this theory, but even Little Rascal was impressed by Mr. Zhao. Once the two of them started talking, they couldn't stop. At first, Yuman could barely understand the gist of the conversation, but gradually, she couldn't understand what the two were talking about. Because the two of them talked about many examples of actual combat, she felt like she was listening to a heavenly book. The more Ding Meng listened, the more excited she became. Mr. Zhao, according to what you said, swordsmanship is actually more powerful than fists and feet? Elder Zhao's face revealed a proud expression. That's right. I've said before that the sword is a gentleman among soldiers. It's the combination of many weapons. In fact, all weapons in martial arts have the same goal. To sum it up, it's the perfect combination of speed, strength, and timing. Ding Meng said, Teacher Zhao, can you demonstrate it? That works too. Mr. Zhao lowered his head and took out two yellow swords from under the podium. They were the most primitive, kind of long swords. Upon closer inspection, they were actually two wooden swords. Well, Ding Meng was a little speechless. No matter how limited the teaching resources were, there was no need to use a wooden sword to practice, right? The school was really stingy. The unpopular subject was given to him by his stepmother. He wanted this treatment and insisted on it. What? Are you looking down on wooden swords? Elder Zhao's expression turned serious. He casually tossed a sword to Ding Meng and said, If you really learn the sword art, any sword in your hand will be a sharp weapon. Ding Meng weighed the sword in his hand. It was as light as a feather. He didn't dare to use his origin energy. If he did, the sword would probably shatter into pieces. Elder Zhao waved his hand and said, Come, use this sword to attack me. Ding Meng hesitated. Well, Mr. Zhao, will this? Elder Zhao's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Don't worry. If you can really hit me, I'll take you to the advanced training center. I still have a free quota. After all, I'm an A-level teacher in our school. Upon hearing the word free, Ding Meng was overjoyed. Even Yuman was full of anticipation. It should be known that the advanced training center in Listen Academy was never free. You either had to pay to enter or have a special quota from the teachers. However, anticipation was just anticipation. When he raised his head again, Ding Meng's expression immediately turned serious. Elder Zhao was standing there casually with his left hand holding the sword hilt and the blade pressed against his back. His posture was elegant and carefree. To be honest, this posture would be a suicidal posture in a real battle. However, Ding Meng didn't think so. When Elder Zhao had walked in the classroom, he looked like a seriously ill and crippled old man. However, once he held a sword in his hand, his entire person changed. It was as if he was suddenly filled with vigor and vitality. His entire person was filled with fighting spirit and sharpness. He didn't look like a crippled old man at all. Even Little Rascal could sense this. Ding Meng, this old man isn't as simple as he looks. Ding Meng took a deep breath. Mr. Zhao, you have to be careful. Elder Zhao laughed. Worry about yourself. Ding Meng didn't answer. Instead, he suddenly stepped forward and swung his sword. This was the reverse cut he was best at and most used to because this was the only move he knew. The blade of the sword was originally aimed at Elder Zhao's shoulder, but the wooden sword stopped halfway because Elder Zhao's wooden sword was already in front of him. The tip of the sword was right at his throat. If he forcibly cut down, Elder Zhao's wooden sword would penetrate his throat first. Ding Ming was still able to calculate this because he had also clearly seen that Elder Zhao's sword arrived first, even though he had attacked later. There was no technique involved, but it was still extraordinarily fast. Ding Ming slowly withdrew his sword, lowered his head, and said respectfully, "Mr. Zhao, I've learned a lot." Elder Zhao's eyes flashed. "Student Ding, you're very good." This was true praise. The fact that Ding Ming was able to stop his sword in midair proved that his eyesight was excellent. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to see the sword's trajectory clearly. This Ding Ming had a very good foundation. Little Rascal was also surprised. This old man, is this the realm of martial arts? How many realms has he reached? "You can try again," Elder Zhao spoke again. Ding Ming said, "Okay." As soon as he said that, the wooden sword flew up again. This time, he didn't use the reverse cut, but the most direct thrust. The reason was simple. A thrust was faster than a cut, and a straight line was the shortest distance between 2 points. Moreover, he chose the best time to attack. As soon as Elder Zhao finished speaking, he attacked. It was very likely that Elder Zhao would let down his guard. However, he was wrong again. Just like before, his sword stopped abruptly halfway, because the tip of Elder Zhao's sword was pointed at his throat again. This sword was unbelievably fast. In Yu Man's eyes, she couldn't see it clearly at all. She could only see the result. Seeing Ding Ming withdraw his sword again, Elder Zhao said seriously, "Student Ding Ming, you're still no match for me. My sword technique is at the peak of the realm. However, you're not bad either. Your sword speed is at least above the first 2 stages of the realm. This proves that you have a good foundation." Every realm of martial arts was divided into 3 small stages: the first stage, the second stage, and the third stage. Only by reaching the third stage could one break through. If it was a high-end martial arts technique, there would be even more stages in each realm, which meant that it would be more difficult to break through. Ding Ming returned the wooden sword to Elder Zhao and sighed. "Mr. Zhao, how can I reach your level of speed? Just training hard is far from enough. You have to pay attention to the scientific method, step by step." Elder Zhao explained. "Why is my sword speed fast? It's because I can draw my sword fast. If you want to draw your sword fast, the first thing you have to practice is drawing your sword. However, drawing your sword fast is because of the control of your strength. And to control your strength accurately, you have to practice your strength first. The essence of this can only be understood through repeated practice." Little Rascal couldn't help but praise. The old man is absolutely right. The foundation determines everything. Ding Ming lowered his head thoughtfully. "I understand. Thank you for your guidance, Mr. Zhao." Elder Zhao looked down at his wristwatch. "Hee. An afternoon passed by without me noticing. Let's call it a day. Student Ding Ming, thank you for coming to my class." Ding Ming hurried forward. His expression was a little unnatural. "Mr. Zhao, can I stay here to practice my swordsmanship? I have nowhere to go in this school." Elder Zhao was stunned. However, he quickly remembered that Ding Ming wasn't a student of his school. "Student Ding Ming, you're not bad. Most people don't like this place. You can practice here as much as you want. If the administrator comes to check, just say that I gave you permission to practice here." "Thank you so much, Mr. Zhao." Ding Ming was overjoyed. "I wonder when Mr. Zhao's next class will be. I like to come and listen." Elder Zhao smiled. "If nothing unexpected happens, it should be the day after tomorrow. You're welcome to come and learn." Chapter 74. After leaving the simple classroom, Elder Zhao limped toward the dormitory. The sky gradually darkened, and night was about to arrive, but Elder Zhao was still in a good mood. Today's class was the only one out of the 68 classes he had this year that he had finished. The other 67 classes were all finished halfway. This student named Ding Ming had given him a good impression, not because Ding Ming was studious, but because he had felt the origin energy fluctuations from Ding Ming's body during their 2 exchanges. He was someone who had come back from the battlefield. Before he was injured, he was already a beginner war elder, so his perception of origin energy was very sensitive. Although he had lost most of his origin points, his perception had not faded. When Ding Ming stabbed at him for the second time, he had felt a subtle but hot aura. Obviously, this Ding Ming had stopped circulating his origin energy when he attacked, but the origin energy fluctuations were still there. Even if it had stopped circulating, it still had such a high temperature. It could be seen that Ding Ming's foundation was not bad. The most important thing was that this little guy knew when to advance and when to retreat. If only he's a student of our school. That way, we can teach him well. Elder Zhao sighed, lowered his head, and continued walking toward the dormitory. His dormitory was located at the edge of the Western District. In fact, the Western District of the school had always been a place where resources were not allocated well. Therefore, even the dormitory in the Western District was a very ordinary low-rise building. Most of the people who lived here were teachers who taught unpopular courses or teachers from the previous generation who were about to retire. There was no other way. The school was a place where grades were important. If the teachers taught good students and had good grades, the allocation of resources would follow. If you didn't have good grades, it was normal for you to live in this kind of residential area that didn't even have an AI system. However, there was one thing that was not normal. There were few people standing by the flower bed downstairs. Through the dim light of the street lamps, he quickly saw them clearly. They were the assistant superintendent of the Southern District, Abel, the boxing teacher, Hu Qianyu, and the statistics teacher, Yuan Yi. A teacher from the Southern District suddenly appeared in the Western District dormitory. They were obviously waiting for him. Elder Zhao, how have you been recently? Abel, who was wearing a suit and leather shoes, greeted him very warmly. Hello, Mr. Abel. Elder Zhao's reaction was very cold. He had always disliked this teaching supervisor. People who were born in the military were most disgusted by those who usually liked to flatter people. This Abel was a typical example. In front of Colonel Dong, this guy was like a dog. When he met his subordinates or other ordinary teachers, this guy never looked them in the eye. Now that he appeared here and became so enthusiastic, there must be something strange. After Abel inquired about his well-being for a while, the tall and burly Hu Qianyu came up to him with a grin. Elder Zhao, you just finished class, right? Elder Zhao glanced at him and said, Teacher Hu, if you have something to say, please say it. Cough, cough. Hu Qianyu coughed dryly. Elder Zhao, it's like this. After the school's discussion, they decided to renovate the old houses in Mingyu District. The old house in Mingyu District was the classroom for afternoon classes. Although the building was dilapidated, it had a long history in the Listen Academy. It could be traced back to more than 100 years ago. When Elder Zhao was young, he spent 6 years studying in that house. Moreover, the area of the empty wasteland was very large. Now that the academy was thriving, it was reasonable to renovate it. Elder Zhao's tone immediately became cold. Renovation? Why didn't I know about it? Hu Qianyu immediately looked at Yuan Yi, who was dressed maturely and elegantly. Yuan Yi also came up with a smile on his face. Teacher Zhao, this was also a last-minute decision by the school's higher-ups. As soon as we received the news, we rushed over to tell you. Look, this is the notice. The wristwatch had been turned on long ago. The mirror image generated on the screen was an electronic notice. The date was marked on it. The renovation would be carried out in 2 days. At the same time, the signature of the school's board of directors and the school seal were also marked. This notice was obviously not fake. The problem was that the classroom was going to be renovated. The school did not discuss with him in advance, nor did they inform him. What do they mean by letting these 3 guys come here and say it verbally? In fact, Elder Zhao knew in his heart that since he retired 3 years ago and returned here, he was useless to the empire. There was no way he could go back to the front line. As a teacher here, few students were convinced by him. Moreover, he taught an unpopular class like classical swordsmanship. There are not many students at all. There was no classical swordsmanship in the Listen Academy before. It was specially established after he came. Obviously, the school did it for the sake of the military. Now that 3 years had passed, there was not a single decent student. The school said that they were going to renovate it in name, but in fact they were going to abolish it. However, it was not good to be so ruthless, so they used the renovation as an excuse. Sigh. Maybe it's time to retire. Elder Zhao sighed helplessly in his heart. However, he heard Hu Qianyu's next mutter. It's good that it's changed. Anyway, there are not many students in Mingyu District's classroom. Elder Zhao turned his head and glanced at him coldly. Teacher Hu, what you mean is that no one cares about my swordsmanship class at all, right? Hu Qianyu also had a helpless look on his face. Then, he sighed and said earnestly, Elder Zhao, if I say that your class is very popular, then I would be lying against my conscience. To be honest, you know in your heart that the mainstream now is fighting, data, and armor. Other subjects are not popular with students. It's not that no one wants to learn cold weapons, but classical swordsmanship can't keep up with this era. Elder Zhao was silent because Hu Qianyu had hit his sore spot. He was a soldier with outstanding military achievements on the battlefield, but when he returned to his hometown, he couldn't even be a teacher. He didn't even have a decent student. This was something his self-esteem wouldn't allow. I can even take down battleships and mechas in space, but I can't teach a single student. What the hell is this? Seeing that his expression was not good, Yuan Yi hurriedly smiled and smoothed things over. Teacher Zhao, you must not listen to his nonsense. You're old, and it's inconvenient for you to move around. The school is also thinking for you. Considering your specific living situation, wouldn't it be better to have fewer classes and more time to recuperate? After all, you're someone who has contributed to the country. Your health is the most important. Miss a few classes? I think you guys want me to never attend classes again, right? Elder Zhao snorted disdainfully in his heart. He could see that Yuan Yi and Hu Qianyu were playing the good cop and bad cop. Yuan Yi patiently explained, Teacher Zhao, in fact, the school is cooperating with Howen Group this time. They want to build a training venue with more complete facilities on the land of Mingyu District. They want to introduce advanced equipment from Howen Group and charge some fees according to their discretion. The main purpose is to serve some students in the school who are not in good financial situations. You also know that the fees of our school's advanced training center. Many students can't afford it. So, the transformation of Mingyu District is a good thing for everyone. I understand. After hearing this, Elder Zhao walked towards the stairs without looking back. It was not until he went upstairs that Hu Qianyu said impatiently, This old man is really stubborn. I wonder if he'll move out of his own accord the day after tomorrow? What if he doesn't want to move? Abel frowned and said, The day after tomorrow, people from Howen Group will come to the site to inspect the site. You guys should go with them. If he stubbornly refuses to move, persuade him when necessary. Hu Qianyu said resentfully, That's the only way. Chapter 75. Moving out was actually quite simple. All he had to do was pack up the equipment in the classroom, clean it up, and move out. However, the classroom in Mingyu District was so dilapidated that there was nothing to clean. The equipment inside was so dilapidated that it was pitifully small. There was nothing to pack up, and it could be discarded at any time. However, it was not so simple for Mr. Zhao. Many years ago, when he first came to Leaston Academy to register, the sword training room he entered for the first time was this classroom. At that time, there were many students practicing sword skills, and everyone welcomed him warmly. His teacher was also a highly respected senior who had once taught him the way of the sword. Many a quiet night, after he had finished a day of arduous cultivation, he could smell the unique and rich fragrance of Paulownia outside the door when he walked out. Many years had passed since then, and the Paulownia by the flower beds had grown into towering trees, but this place had changed. It was not that Mr. Zhao did not want to move out. What he really did not want to leave was the feelings he had entrusted to this place. It was just that times were changing and society was progressing. This dilapidated building and unpopular subjects could not keep up with the pace of the academy's development. Just as Yuan Yi said, it was not necessarily a bad thing to turn into a new stadium. Mr. Zhao also understood that this might be the last class of his life. He did not ask for anything else. He only hoped that a few more students would come today. That way, he would be satisfied. However, he was disappointed once again. After he opened the door, The row of cotton mats in the center of the classroom was empty. There was not a single person. He looked around again and finally found a familiar figure. The short and shabbily dressed Ding Ming was sitting cross-legged in the corner with his eyes closed. He felt a little relieved, but more than that, he lamented that none of the students from his school came. Instead, it was the children from outside school who were so serious about their studies. As soon as he pushed the door open, Ding Ming immediately opened his eyes. "Mr. Zhao, you're here." Mr. Zhao nodded with a slight smile on his face. "So it's Ding Ming. Sorry to keep you waiting." Ding Ming said, "Mr. Zhao, I've been here the whole time. I didn't go out." Mr. Zhao was a little surprised. "You've been here for 2 days and 2 nights?" Ding Ming was a little puzzled. "Is there a problem?" Elder Zhao asked curiously. "What are you doing here?" "Practice." Ding Ming was even more puzzled. "Mr. Zhao, didn't you say it before? The speed of the sword and the control of the power need to be practiced repeatedly. You've been practicing?" Elder Zhao obviously didn't believe him. "Yes." Ding Ming stood up and picked up the 2 wooden swords on the podium. Elder Zhao noticed his hand gesture. With a twist of his wrist, the sword elegantly made a circle in the air and landed in his palm. It was not difficult to do this with 1 sword, but it was impossible to do it with 2 swords at the same time without a certain technique. How long had it been? It had only been 2 days, and this kid had already become so proficient in it. Mr. Zhao did not believe him at all. "Ding Ming, let's compete again. Let me see the effect of your practice." "Okay." Ding Ming twisted his wrist slightly, and the wooden sword spun in the air and flew towards Mr. Zhao. As soon as Mr. Zhao's hand grasped the hilt of the sword, Ding Ming made his move. The wooden sword didn't emit any light, so you could judge its momentum completely based on the fluctuations in the surrounding air. The air didn't seem to have moved, but Ding Ming's wooden sword was like a venomous snake spitting out its tongue. Compared to the previous day, Ding Ming's speed this time was many times faster. With a soft ka sound, the 2 swords seemed to collide. In fact, the 2 swords stopped abruptly, and the tips of the 2 swords were pressed against each other's throat. Ding Ming suddenly withdrew his sword, and his expression was a bit gloomy. "Still slow. I'm still far behind Mr. Zhao. It seems that I still need to practice," he muttered to himself, but Mr. Zhao was so shocked that he couldn't speak. "How is this slow? Do you know how long it took me to reach this level back in the academy? For 6 whole years, no matter if it was winter or summer, day or night, I never missed 2 practice classes a day. But you basically mastered it in 2 days. You are a monster." Mr. Zhao's heart was in turmoil. He knew all too well what had happened in that split second. Although Ding Ming had taken the initiative to attack first, his sword had been parried away by Ding Ming's sword. Even though both of their swords had reached each other's throat at the same time, any expert would know what it meant to be off by just a little bit. Even if Ding Ming was worse than him, it wasn't by much. They were almost at the same level. It had only been 48 hours. If he wasn't a monster, then what was he? "You?" Mr. Zhao was about to ask when the door was pushed open again. A large group of men and women came in, led by Hu Qianyu and Yuan Yi, followed by 7 or 8 students. Before Mr. Zhao could ask, Ding Ming spoke first. "Huh? Manager Hu? Manager Du is here too." "Manager Hu?" Mr. Zhao was confused. When did Hu Qianyu become a manager? A man in a suit and leather shoes came out of the crowd. It was Hu Qi, the personnel manager of Verdant Town's vast martial arts school. Behind him was the beautiful account manager Du Yu. When he saw Ding Ming, Hu Qi was a little embarrassed. "Isn't this Ding Ming, brother? So you are here too. What's the situation?" Hu Qianyu was a little surprised. Hu Qi immediately turned around and explained in a whisper. Obviously, he was explaining that Ding Ming was a sparring partner in vast martial arts school. While he was explaining, Ding Ming also turned his head and whispered something to Mr. Zhao. After a while, Mr. Zhao's expression changed. He then turned on his wristband and checked. The hologram quickly returned the accurate information. Hu Qianyu, teacher of Class 3 of Martial Arts School in the Southern District of Listin School. Hu Qi, personnel manager of Verdant Town Martial Arts School in Autumn Tarn City. Howhan Group. Affiliation, brothers. Mr. Zhao suddenly sneered. I thought it was strange before. Why are you so concerned about the renovation? It turns out that Howling Group has opened a martial arts school in the school, and it is your relative who is doing it. Are you short of money? Teacher who? Hu Tianyu suddenly felt that he had lost all face. This damn Ding Ming didn't properly work as a sparring partner in the dojo. How did he manage to sneak into the academy? It was really bad luck to meet him here. Hu Qi smiled and stepped forward. Mr. Zhao, please listen to my explanation. Our Howling Group is going to open a venue that is conducive to the training of talents in your school. It is even more helpful for... Shut up. Mr. Zhao was furious. Who do you think you are? Why do you have to explain to me? The internal affairs of the school are not for outsiders to criticize. Get out. Hu Qi was shocked. He knew Mr. Zhao's identity. No matter how useless a retired soldier of the Empire was, he was not someone a commoner like him could afford to offend. Hu Tianyu was also angry. He pointed at Ding Ming and said, "This person is an interstellar refugee. How did he get into our school? Is he an outsider?" Hearing him say this, Mr. Zhao became even angrier. Ding Ming is my student. I was also an interstellar refugee back then, and I also studied at least in school. You mean that I'm also an outsider and can get out, right? Hu Tianyu was speechless. He braced himself and said, "But Ding Ming is really not a registered student of our school?" Mr. Zhao also pointed at Hu Qi. Then is he from our school? Hu Tianyu felt a headache coming on. This Mr. Zhao was famous for his stubborn temper. If you pester him endlessly, you are simply asking for trouble. Seeing that the two sides were quarreling, Yuan Yi hurriedly came up to smooth things over. "Oh, Mr. Zhao, calm down, calm down. We are following the school's instructions to bring a partner to check out the venue." Mr. Zhao interrupted her directly. "What *T partner? Hu Qi and Hu Tianyu are brothers. They are in cahoots. Mr. Zhao, will be the first to disagree if they want to cheat the students of their money." He no longer called Hu Tianyu teacher, but called him by his name. He was obviously really angry. However, a voice that made him even angrier came from behind Hu Tianyu. "So what if you shout fiercely? The school has already sent out a notice that the new stadium will be built tomorrow. This place will be flattened today. No matter how loud your voice is, you will still have to obediently leave with your tail between your legs. Leave early. You are already so old. Don't embarrass yourself here. Do you really like others to see you make a fool of yourself?" Mr. Zhao was furious. "Which bastard is it? Get out here." Chapter 76. It was definitely impossible for him to roll out. Behind Hu Tianyu stood a young man with a strong back and a bare waist. He was at least 9 meters tall and wore a training vest and a pair of black sharkskin gloves. His whole body was extremely muscular, and his knuckles made cracking sounds. At a glance, one could tell that he was a student who usually practiced boxing. Elder Zhao sneered. "Hu Tianyu, your student's quality is very high." He actually dared to publicly insult a teacher. Hu Tianyu's eyelids drooped as he stared straight at the ground. It was as if he had become deaf and couldn't hear anything. Seeing him ignore his student like this, Elder Zhao's anger became even greater. "Bastard, what's your name?" The young man clenched his fists together, tilted his neck, and replied disdainfully, "You don't need to know. You just need to know that everyone calls me Brother Wei." Elder Zhao was so angry that he laughed. "I thought it was some amazing person, but it turns out to be Hao Wei who follows Lei Bao everywhere to collect protection fees. Other than bullying new students, what else can you do? That's all you have." Hao Wei's chin was raised even higher, and his tone and expression were even more disdainful. Collecting protection fees requires people with ability. Even if Trash wants to collect protection fees, they don't have the qualifications. When he said this, his gaze was fixed on Ding Ming, but the meaning was self-evident. "We are teacher whose students, and teacher whose students have such unreasonable strength. What about you? You old man don't even have a single student. Aren't you shabby? What qualifications do you have to judge other students?" Elder Zhao was a little anxious now. His face couldn't be smeared by a student under Hu Tianyu like this. My Zhao Yu's student wouldn't do such dirty things and wouldn't dare to do it. Hao Wei couldn't help but laugh. Teacher Zhao, do you really think you have students? Why don't you take a piss and look in the mirror? It was reasonable to say that students of Listen Academy absolutely couldn't talk to teachers like this, or they would be severely punished by the school. However, the rules were one thing, and reality was another. Elder Zhao couldn't use origin energy at all. To put it bluntly, he was no different from an ordinary person. Without strength, anything he said was empty talk. Ding Meng is my student. Elder Zhao's face was red. Ha 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 ha. The group of students immediately burst into laughter. Hao Wei also smiled and looked at Ding Meng with a sympathetic look in his eyes. We've checked. This country bumpkin came from the countryside near Qingzhe. Look at his silly look. He a student? What right does a galactic refugee have to become a student of our Christine Academy? Shut up. Boss Xiao was angry. This was his most taboo topic. Good. So you came prepared. Do you want to drive me away? I haven't finished my class yet. No one can chase me away before I finish my class. Not even the principal. All of you get out. If you have anything to say, wait until I finish my class. Unfortunately, the large group of people didn't move, let alone leave. Yuan Yi came up to play the good cop again. Teacher Zhao, don't be angry. Please don't be angry. We're just thinking for the sake of the students of the academy. We hope that the stadium can be built soon. That way, it will be good for all the students. Before Elder Zhao could answer, Hao Wei couldn't help but mock him. Look at that country bumpkin's silly look. Not to mention that he's not a student of the academy. Even if he is, he's probably a retard. What can he learn? What does he know? He's just like a fool. It was no wonder he would mock him like this. Ding Meng hadn't opened his mouth and didn't participate in their quarrel. Ding Meng had been looking at the floor in deep thought, but it was more like he was in a daze. In fact, Ding Meng and Little Rascal were communicating telepathically. Ding Meng had never liked to meddle in other people's business. As long as it didn't harm his interests, he wouldn't care even if you insulted him. Even if you quarreled with him, it had nothing to do with him. However, Little Rascal was very unhappy. Ding Meng, look, it was that Hu Qi who expelled you from the dojo last time, and now he's causing trouble at the academy. Ding Meng said, so what? Little Rascal said, aren't you angry? Ding Meng was even more puzzled. Angry? Why would I be angry? He's not a threat to me at all. Little Rascal knew Ding Meng's temper well. How is he not a threat? He's a big threat. Oh, Ding Meng was curious. Little Rascal said eloquently, judging from their tone, it looks like they're planning to renovate this area. This classroom is probably going to be flattened. Without Mr. Zhao in the classroom, there won't be a place for you to teach. What's the point of learning swordsmanship then? If you can't learn swordsmanship, you won't be able to improve your combat index. If you can't improve it, what if you run into someone stronger? Yeah, that makes sense. Ding Meng raised his head decisively. At this moment, Elder Zhao was so angry that he was trembling all over. He turned his head and said, Ding Meng, our class isn't over yet. Let's teach them what it means to get the hell out of here. He hinted that Ding Meng had come out because of his understanding of Ding Meng. With Ding Meng's foundation, teaching these bastards a lesson shouldn't be a problem. Okay, Ding Meng answered and stepped forward. He looked at Hao Wei calmly. Did you hear what Mr. Zhao said? Hao Wei looked at him with interest. So what if I did? Country bumpkin, you don't really think you can make us get the hell out of here, do you? A cold light flashed through Ding Meng's eyes. He didn't like to waste words. Since you're turning a deaf ear to me, then don't blame me for being impolite. Seeing Ding Meng's cold expression, Hao Wei immediately waved to the side. I don't need to do anything to deal with this kind of trash. Shaoan, come here. Didn't you just become an origin ability user? There's no need to use origin ability. Come and wake student Ding up. Another young man walked out of the crowd. He was dressed exactly the same as Hao Wei, but his body and muscles were obviously much weaker than Hao Wei's. Shaoan also clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. There was a malicious expression on his face. No wonder it's called classical swordsmanship. It turns out that using a wooden sword is a classical swordsmanship. It's really a good martial arts technique. There was another burst of laughter. This time, Even Hu Qianyu and Yuan Yi had smiles on their faces. Indeed, the teaching equipment was replaced by wooden swords. This classical swordsmanship class was really shabby to a certain extent. Ding Meng was very calm. He didn't even look at Xiao, and a piece of scrap metal like you can't even compare to an ordinary worker. You're not worth my time. Get someone more decent up here. You. Xiaoan flew into a rage. Without another word, he rushed forward and threw a punch. Although it was called one punch, it was actually 3 punches. Because he had secretly used a martial arts technique, the 3 punches were launched almost simultaneously. They looked like 3 phantoms, real and fake, making it impossible to see where they came from. Yuan Yi, who was standing to the side, couldn't help but nod slightly in praise. Teacher Hu is indeed a strong general. There are no weak soldiers under his command. It was indeed impressive for an ordinary student to have such martial arts attainments. The problem was that Xiaoan's punches were like slow-motion movie moves in Ding Meng's eyes. He was really puzzled. With your skills, calling you a piece of scrap metal is already overestimating you. I don't know where you got the courage to yell. Ding Meng didn't even bother to make a move. He simply tilted his body slightly, and Xiaoan's punches all hit air. Once he missed, he immediately followed up with a straight punch, a hook punch, a forward punch, a horizontal punch, an elbow punch, a smash punch. Punch after punch, fist after fist, fist after fist, interlocking with each other. This bright fist was the school's most basic fist technique, and Xiaoan was obviously very proficient in it. Not only did he display the changes between the moves, but he also displayed the characteristics of the technique's frontal attack. But as usual, Ding Meng didn't like watching your slow-motion moves. No matter how you hit him, Ding Meng just tilted his body slightly, sucked in his stomach a little, lowered his head, raised his foot. He didn't even twist his body, and easily dodged Dan's attacks. After Xiaoan finished a set of bright punch, he didn't even touch Ding Meng's clothes. He couldn't help but angrily point at Ding Meng's nose. Why didn't you fight back? You only know how to dodge. Are you a coward? Ding Meng stared at him. Do you want me to hit you? Xiaoan suddenly felt a chill and couldn't help but shiver. He could also see that this country bumpkin should have some strength and was definitely not a piece of trash. But since he had already said that, there was no use in regretting it. He could only brace himself and continue. Come on, hit me. Chapter 77. Ding Meng didn't hit him. Instead, he turned around to look at Elder Zhao. Teacher Zhao, do you need me to hit him? Elder Zhao was still in a fit of anger. When he heard this, he replied without hesitation, hit him. Give him a good beating. This group of scum only knows how to bully other students. Ding Meng hesitated. Then, do you need me to beat him to death? As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere in the classroom became tense. Elder Zhao was also startled. This brat's body was very strange. He thought for a moment and said, that won't be necessary. Just get him out of here. Ding Meng turned around and calmly looked at Xiaoan. Did you hear what Teacher Zhao said? Xiaoan also felt that something wasn't right, but he was used to being stubborn. I didn't hear anything. Then, you don't have to listen. Before he could finish his sentence, Hao Wei and the others felt a gust of wind coming at them. Then, they heard a muffled pung sound, followed by the sound of glass shattering. As for Xiaoan, he really did leave. He had been sent flying more than 20 meters by Ding Meng's shoulder. His back smashed through the window, and he fell into the flower bed outside. He howled like a pig being slaughtered. The sound traveled through the wall, causing the students to feel their hair stand on end. Little Rascal said, Ding Meng, your collapsing force is still not enough. You need to continue practicing. It turned out that Ding Meng hadn't actually hit Xiaoan. Instead, he had used the collapsing force from his shoulder to send Xiaoan flying. If he had really used his shoulder to hit Xiaoan, Xiaoan would probably have been killed. For a moment, the classroom was completely silent. This scene had stunned everyone. The one who was most shocked was naturally Elder Zhao. He knew that Ding Meng had a strong foundation, but he never expected it to be this strong. He hadn't even used his origin energy and had used his body to eat his opponent alive. What a joke. Ding Meng had constructed 4 origin points in his body, which was equivalent to cultivating a 4-star cultivation technique. What he strengthened was his physical body. His current toughness was no weaker than an Origin Energy warrior's. Hu Qianyu's expression had long changed. He hissed, "Quick, send him to the medical division." "Quick, quick, quick!" 4 or 5 students yelled and ran out of the classroom. Xiaoan was probably seriously injured. At this time, Hao Wei did not dare to look down on him. He clapped his fists and said, "Student Ding, we don't use virtual cabins inside the school. When we fight in real life, we stop at a certain point. It doesn't seem right for you to hit him so hard, right?" Ding Meng only answered him with 3 words, "Get out." Hao Wei's face immediately turned ashen. "What did you say?" Ding Meng sighed. He really couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with these guys. He still wanted to learn more. "I'll say it one last time. Get out. Don't waste my time." "Bastard." Hao Wei was also enraged. He clenched his fists and rushed forward. He was not as fast as Xiaoan. Not only was his movements much faster, but he had also used the army fist dragon riding step to pounce on Xiaoan. This move might seem like a fancy move, but it was very powerful when used by someone with strength. Because the temperature in the classroom suddenly dropped, the air became cold, and there was an obvious pulse of Origin Energy. This Hao Wei was clearly an Ice-type Origin Energy user. His intention was simple, to slow down Ding Meng's speed. He had seen Ding Meng's charge very clearly. This country bumpkin's speed was really fast. His Ice-type Origin Energy had slowed down Ding Meng's speed. "Let's see what you can do now." Hao Wei's train of thought was correct. The problem was that when he rushed forward, it was as if his entire body had crashed into an invisible wall, and he was quickly bounced back. This time, not only was Mr. Zhao shocked, but even Hu Tianyu's mouth was wide open. This was because Ding Meng had directly kicked Hao Wei until he slid 7 or 8 meters away and fell to the ground, curling up into a ball. It was reasonable to say that Hu Qi and Du Yu were also present. They knew that Ding Meng had the strength of a fist, but fist strength did not represent leg strength. To be able to kick an intermediate Origin Energy user to such a state with just a casual kick, what kind of classical swordsmanship was this? He could have just joined the fighting department. What a scam. However, Ding Meng gave Mr. Zhao a puzzled expression. "It's really strange. With this kind of ability, he can actually collect protection fees from the school. He even said that he has the ability. I really can't see where his ability lies." Mr. Zhao was originally angry, but he couldn't help but be amused by Ding Meng's words. That's right. What kind of teacher can teach what kind of student? If the teacher is incompetent, the student will naturally be even more useless. Hearing this, Hu Qianyu's eyebrows really darkened into a line. Hao Wei could be considered his student with good aptitude. Who would have thought that he would be kicked down by this country bumpkin? And this country bumpkin didn't even use his Origin Energy. He now had no doubt that Ding Meng was an Origin Energy user. However, the conversation between Ding Meng and Mr. Zhao had caused Hao Wei's anger to rise to the limit. He quickly got up from the ground and rushed forward again with a strange cry. This time, the temperature in the classroom was even lower. He was already circulating the Origin Energy in his body with all his might. He had to get back at Ding Meng for this. Mr. Zhao also sensed the Ice Origin Energy and couldn't help but scold. "If you really want to compete, you should use the virtual cabin." "Hao Wei, you actually..." His voice was interrupted by a muffled bang because Hao Wei had fallen to the ground and curled up into a ball. He had been kicked in the center of his chest by Ding Meng. This time, he slid further and directly slid into the corner of the wall, smashing a row of wooden shelves into pieces. Hao Wei only felt as if there was 1,000 pounds of stone pressing down on his chest, so much so that it was difficult for him to breathe. However, he was still quite strong. He actually stood up shakily and staggered a few steps forward. His bad habit of pointing at Ding Meng still hadn't been corrected. "Little brat, you're Ding Meng, right? I'll remember you. Just you wait." His attitude made Ding Meng very unhappy. "I told you to get out, but you just shamelessly stayed here." At the same time, Ding Meng also couldn't understand. Why did you have to be so stubborn when you were so weak? There was another bang sound. Ding Meng had never cared about what others thought of him. By the same logic, he wouldn't care about other people's feelings, so this time, he wouldn't give you a chance. He fiercely dodged and swept Hao Wei's butt. This move was learned from Bamboo Pole and later incorporated into Chu Xiaoqing's 9 forms of swallow attack. Hao Wei was like Shaolin. He directly smashed the glass window and flew into the flower bed outside. He didn't scream because he couldn't scream because he had fainted. Mr. Zhao was shocked, but he still lowered his eyelids and glanced at Hu Tianyu. I said that if there's anything you want to say, wait until after my class. Do you believe me now? Hu Tianyu's face was as green as a rusty steel plate. He was definitely not weaker than a student, but he couldn't do anything. This was a competition between students, and a teacher had no reason to interfere. Elder Zhao was recognized as a useless teacher in the western district of the school. He didn't even have a single student. Now, he had casually taken in a star-level refugee as a student who could easily beat up the student that he had carefully trained. Today, he had lost too much face. More importantly, he didn't know what other teachers would think of him if this matter was spread out. The only thing he could do now was to spit out 3 words expressionlessly. Let's go. Even after Hu Tianyu and the others left, Mr. Zhao's mood didn't improve. He also knew that since the school had sent out the notice, this place would definitely be demolished, so he couldn't continue with this last class. Ding Ming, do you want to learn real classical swordsmanship? Mr. Zhao cherished talent. Ding Ming's performance today greatly exceeded his expectations. Ding Ming also appeared very sincere. Mr. Zhao, I want to learn, but after all, I'm not a student here, and this place is about to be renovated. After the previous argument, Ding Ming also knew that this unpopular teacher was likely to face the awkward situation of having no classes to teach. Perhaps retirement would be the best ending for him. Mr. Zhao was deep in thought, and his expression looked like he had made a great decision. Ding Ming, as long as you're willing to learn, I'll think of a way to get you to be a student. I'll take you to a place now. Let's go now. What do you think? Chapter 78. In the central district of the Leaston Academy, a magnificent tower-like building was located in the central square. It was surrounded by a colorful fountain and various flowers. From afar, it looked like a fairy tale palace. This was the advanced training center of the school. It was only open to 3 types of students. The first type was naturally students from wealthy families who could afford the training fees. This was because the cultivation of origin ability users was actually a bottomless pit. If one wanted to cultivate faster, more efficiently, and more powerful, additional supplementary materials and equipment were essential. The second type was students who were recognized by the school as having excellent results and outstanding talent. This was still considered fair. At least, it opened up a path for those students from poor families. The third type was students who had special permission from A-level teachers. These people were usually the favorite disciples of the teachers. At this moment, Ding Ming had already taken off his tattered clothes and changed into a pure white school uniform. This uniform was a bit like the training uniform of the vast martial arts school. However, the school's logo was printed on the chest. It was a beautiful rainbow, which symbolized that students who graduated from a school would be able to have a colorful life. At the same time, Ding Ming also wore a delicate watch on his wrist. This was a wristwatch that was issued by the school and was exclusive to him. It was limited to use within the Autumn Lake area. As soon as he turned on the virtual screen, the first thing that appeared was his own information. Name, Ding Ming. Gender, male. Age, 20 years old. Department, Leaston Academy, West Ancient Sword Magic Department Teacher. Zhao West. Student number, LST. SW0000301. Student level, 0. Student qualifications. In process, student qualifications refer to the registration status, and in process actually meant that Elder Zhao had gone to negotiate with the school's higher-ups to register Ding Ming as an official student of the school. Thinking of this, Ding Ming was very grateful. Elder Zhao had obviously treated him well. The only way he could repay him was to train seriously. Although Elder Zhao was an A-level teacher, he only had one special permission. In other words, Elder Zhao had placed all his hopes on Ding Ming. As long as he had good results, Elder Zhao's current situation would improve, and the school would have to reevaluate the ancient sword magic department. At the very least, they would have to do something about the venue, classroom, allocation, and resources. It would not be like now, where even those bastards like Hao Wei and Xiao and dared to ride on his head and shit on him. At this moment, Ding Ming noticed that there were quite a number of students entering and leaving the training center. However, they were different from the students in the western and southern regions. Most of them had a serious expression and were walking at a fast pace. Obviously, everyone was in a fast-paced training pace and did not want to waste time. Let's start. Ding Ming quickly walked toward the entrance. Little Rascal said, "Not bad. You really do need to come to this place, because this is a normal school in human society. The training will definitely be more systematic, scientific, and targeted." Little Rascal's words were not wrong. The first floor of the training center was a bright white hall filled with the aura of modern technology. The hall was extremely spacious, serene, and spotless. The floor was as clean as a mirror, and the surrounding walls were inlaid with white cylindrical cabins that were 3 meters tall and 1 meter in diameter. They were connected to the ground and connected to the energy source. Ding Ming was not unfamiliar with this thing, because he had seen it before in Vader's lounge at Black Gold Base. It was an Origin Ability Induction Amplification Cabin, or Induction Cabin for short. No matter what you wanted to cultivate, cultivation techniques were the foundation of all Origin Ability users. Every Origin Ability user started with cultivation techniques, so the hall on the first floor was the Induction Meditation Hall. There were several hundred induction cabins here, and most of them had red indicator lights on the exterior, indicating that there was someone cultivating inside. Ding Ming chose a cabin with a green light and entered it. The fiber fan immediately closed, and the energy rays inside immediately scanned his temples. Through the stimulation of the brain, through the electric current, his perception was suddenly increased by a large margin. At the same time, the wristwatch was connected to a special socket in the cabin, allowing the user to become one with the virtual consciousness space set up by the induction cabin while in a meditative state. Then, the user could cultivate according to the system's instructions step by step. This was the first time Ding Ming had entered the induction cabin, and he finally understood the benefits of the K-virus memory. First of all, he did not need to learn any meditation techniques at all, and he could directly enter a meditative state. Secondly, he did not need the virtual consciousness space set up by the system for him, because he had his own consciousness space. Strictly speaking, Little Rascal was his consciousness space, and Little Rascal's functions were much more powerful than this simple and crude virtual consciousness space. Yuman had told it before that buying a normal meditation technique would normally cost 50 to 200 star coins. Although the induction cabin only cost 1 star coin per hour, when factoring in amplification agents, special medicines, and all kinds of supplementary materials, the cost of breaking through to Origin Ability user would be a huge financial barrier for ordinary people. It was not hard to understand why Old Yu was usually so frugal. Of course, for Ding Ming, the induction cabin was not completely useless. After entering a meditative state, the virtual consciousness space displayed row after row of cultivation techniques, frowny face source of heat technique. 3 stars. Thermodynamics system, wink with a frown, frost technique. 3 stars. Ice system, wink with a frown, imperial wind technique. 3 stars. Light speed system, wink with a frown, shadow of light. 3 stars. Light speed system, wink with a frown, tenacity technique. 3 stars. Tempering system, wink with a frown, dark abyss, ice dust technique. 4 stars. Ice system, wink with a frown, electromagnetic pulse technique. 4 stars. Electromagnetism system, wink with a frown, source fission. 4 stars. Biochemistry system. The 3-star cultivation techniques could be used for free, but the 4-star cultivation techniques were all displayed as locked and could not be used. How can I unlock them? Ding Ming asked. The system's voice was very sweet. You need to exchange 50 points from the school or spend 500 star coins to unlock them. Damn, 1 point was worth 10 star coins. Even if Ding Ming killed him, he would not be able to fork out 500 star coins. Even if he went out to rob others, he would not be able to get that much money. Moreover, Looking at the names of these cultivation techniques, he estimated that they were all very ordinary. The free 3-star cultivation techniques were only available for free with special permission. He really did not dare to imagine that the cultivation of origin ability users was so expensive. Forget it, he would just take a look at the 3-star cultivation technique, source of heat technique. This was really a helpless choice. At this time, the advantage of the sensor cabin was displayed. The location of the origin had always been the biggest problem for origin ability users. Because the human body was breathing at all times, the origin in the body was a microscopic existence. To construct the origin in such a small and vibrating space, one could imagine the difficulty. However, the sensor cabin avoided this problem. It allowed the body to be more stable during meditation, making it easier to find the location and carve the origin. This was the fundamental reason why the majority of origin ability users could not do without the sensor cabin for their cultivation. As for why Ding Ming could cultivate without the sensor cabin and black gold base, aside from the cave virus memory, it was more because of the harsh environment at that time. Life and death were only a matter of moments. If one did not focus and seize the time to construct the origin, one could very well die without a burial place in the next moment. Therefore, from a certain perspective, humans did not have any talent to speak of. They were all forced to activate their endless potential at the edge of life and death. At this moment, the consciousness space had already constructed a virtual image of Ding Meng's body. The 3 origins of the source of heat technique were displayed at the heart. What was surprising was that the exact location was exactly the same as the first 3 origins of the Diamond Star technique. However, after careful observation, Ding Ming discovered that although the location was the same, the stars, lines, and patterns inside could not be compared to the Diamond Star technique at all. The Diamond Star technique was at least 5 times more complex than this source of heat technique. Ding Ming could not help but ask, "Little rascal, is the strength of our cultivation technique reflected in this aspect?" Chapter 79. Yes, this 3-star technique is too simple. Even if you can cultivate it, its power will be limited. Little rascal pondered for a moment before saying, "However, I suggest that Ding Ming reconstruct it according to its internal parameters." Ding Ming suddenly hesitated. "This won't conflict with our techniques?" "It won't." Little rascal immediately denied. "I've already examined it. Its internal structure is only the initial part of our origin, so it's completely identical. Even if it's different, you can still cultivate it as long as it's a technique of the same type." "Ding Ming, you're already very familiar with the first 3 origin points. Why don't you practice it?" Ding Ming nodded. "Okay, I'll give it a try." In fact, he didn't even need to try. He just needed to focus his mind and mentally activate it. The internal structure of the 3 origin points was completed in just 2 seconds. After all, there was no harm without comparison. The origin of heat art didn't have any golden origin energy threads connecting the 3 origin points. It only formed a vague outline of a vortex between the 3 origin points. There was a faint flow of origin energy within it, but it was far inferior to the bright and pure diamond mirror of the Diamond Star secret art. It was easy to tell which of the 2 techniques was better. "So you're saying that I've already mastered the heat source skill?" Ding Ming asked. Little rascal explained, "Actually, that's not a bad thing. You just need to use the origin of heat art in the future so that others won't know your true technique. You should know by now that our Diamond Star secret art is too exaggerated. It won't be good if others see something wrong with it." Ding Ming deeply agreed. His experience in the black gold base had taught him the principle of an ordinary man is innocent, but a man's wealth is his own ruin. When a boy was outside, he needed to learn how to protect himself. After carefully observing the other 3-star techniques, Ding Ming came out of the sensing cabin. The data on the wristwatch showed that the students of Listen Academy usually meditated for less than 3 hours. Exceeding this time limit would be the critical value. Exceeding the critical value would either cause brain damage or abnormal conditions. Let's keep a low profile. Ding Ming didn't want to cause a commotion. Little rascal had already calculated for him. With his current strength, he could meditate for 5 to 6 days in the sensing cabin. It was better to wait until he observed the fifth origin of the Diamond Star technique before using it. Therefore, the second floor of the training center was a hall dedicated to physical strength training. This floor was actually similar to the first floor of the vast dojo. There were students everywhere using all kinds of equipment, but the most popular one was still the boxing machine. After all, boxing techniques were popular among the mainstream. This machine was almost the same as a treadmill. A person stood on the treadmill and faced a leather target directly in front of him. All he had to do was punch. The screen below would calculate the relevant data. Ding-Ming glanced at the wristwatch. According to the requirements of the school, as long as one was a combat-type origin ability user, the score for beginner origin ability users was 150 points, intermediate origin ability users were 300 points, advanced origin ability users were 600 points, and origin ability users were 1,000 points. Ding-Ming chose a very remote corner. There were only 2 boxing machines by the window in the southeast. One of them was already in use, while the other was empty. He could go and try it out. However, Ding-Ming didn't know how to use this thing. Fortunately, the student next to the machine was very enthusiastic. "Hey student, how are you? Is this your first time here? Let me help you turn it on." "Thank you." Ding-Ming noticed that this enthusiastic student was a bit like a gigolo, but the score on the machine showed that his strength was quite good. 388 points, 378 points, 391 points, 385 points. The average score was maintained around 380 points. Obviously, he had already reached the standard of an intermediate origin ability user. He was definitely trying to become an advanced origin ability user. "It's done. Student, you can practice now." The gigolo was very friendly. He even made an inviting gesture. "Oh, what's my name?" "My name is Xie. You can call me Xiao Jian. I'm in the Southern District's Fighting Department's Class 5. Ding-Ming, which department are you in?" Ding-Ming was honest. Western District's Classical Swordsmanship Department. Western District. Xie Jian's expression turned pensive. The Western District was the worst of the 4 districts. He didn't mind that Ding-Ming was a student of the Western District, but he had never heard of the Classical Swordsmanship Department. "Then which class are you in?" Ding-Ming said, "I think there's only one class, and I'm the only student in my class." Xie Jian was dumbstruck. Is this a new department the school created? It made sense for him to be so puzzled. The Advanced Training Center was configured according to the different disciplines. For example, the Fighting Department's Fighting Department was basically all here. The Data Department's Simulation Room was mostly here. The Armor Department's Material Center was on the 3rd floor, and the Body Tempering Department students had their corresponding Gravity Room on the 4th floor. In any case, all kinds of disciplines had their corresponding areas. The only thing he had never heard of was classical swordsmanship. If he wanted to practice cold weapons, he should go to the Sensing Hall on the 5th floor. Just as Ding-Ming was humbly asking Xie Jian for guidance, the hall on the 2nd floor suddenly quieted down. The students who were practicing all stopped and looked toward the entrance. In fact, Ding-Ming also felt it. A relatively strong wave of energy had rushed in. The aura was very strange. It didn't seem like a human's aura, but rather a bit like a monster's. He raised his head again and saw a group of students walking in with a 2-meter-tall giant. This giant was obviously a student because he was wearing the school's uniform. However, this person had a fierce face, and he didn't look like a good person. "Damn, it's Zhu Fei." Xie Jian's face suddenly turned pale, and his voice trembled. "Who's Zhu Fei?" Ding-Ming was curious. This Zhu Fei was a famous bully in the Leaston Academy. He cultivated biochemical origin ability, which focused on refining genes. Once he cultivated to a certain level, he would be able to obtain the abilities of animals and monsters. However, he was too eager to succeed. God knows where he got his hands on an uncertified amplification drug, which caused the origin ability in his body to become chaotic. To put it simply, instead of improving his cultivation, he regressed. After passing 4 exams, he still wasn't able to become a warrior. The Leaston Academy's exams were held every 2 years. If he couldn't pass 4 exams, then he would have to wait 8 years. Wasting 8 years at the prime of his life. One could imagine that he wouldn't have any future prospects. This guy simply went all out and followed Lei Bao everywhere to collect protection fees. He bullied the weak and did a lot of bad things. When he went crazy, he even beat up a teacher. Other students secretly read his name backwards, Fei Zhu, which was a homonym for fat pig. This showed how much he hated Fei Zhu. The school couldn't do anything about this guy. After all, he was an origin ability user. However, according to the rules, those who failed 5 exams would be automatically expelled. There was still half a year before the exam. This guy didn't go outside the school to make a living. Instead, he came here to cause trouble. Xie Jian said that he was here to cause trouble. It wasn't wrong at all. When Zhu Fei came in, someone immediately greeted him with a smile. "Brother Fei, long time no see." "Get lost." Zhu Fei stared at him. He reached out his hand and grabbed the back of the person's neck. Like a chicken, he casually threw him more than 10 meters away. He hit a group of female students, and the hall was immediately filled with screams. However, the screams quickly stopped because Zhu Fei turned on the virtual screen on his wrist and looked at the people in the hall. It seemed that he was here to look for someone. Don't look, don't look." Xie Jian quickly lowered his head. "I hope he's not here to look for us." Chapter 80. The atmosphere in the hall on the second floor was very strange at the moment. The scene of boxing in full swing was gone. The students were all silent, standing on the boxing machine, not even daring to breathe. The hall was strangely quiet. Zhu Fei led a group of minions and searched from house to house like a Japanese invading a village. The people they searched were not female students, but male students. These female students were also smart. When they realized that it was none of their business, they quickly left, lest someone unlucky enough to be implicated. Just as they were about to reach the southeast corner, Zhu Fei suddenly grabbed a boy's hair and lifted his head. After carefully looking at his face and comparing it to the image on the hologram, Zhu Fei slapped the boy's face a few times, causing blood to spurt out from his nose. He lay on the ground, unable to get up. Then, a group of lackeys behind him rushed up and stomped on him. The boy screamed miserably as if he was crying. Zhu Fei said casually, "Damn, so you're Ding Ming. You're F***king useless." When he heard the 2 words, Ding Ming, Xie Jian's face suddenly turned pale. He never thought that this god of plague was actually looking for Ding Ming. Ding Ming, Ding Ming. Xie Jian, on the other hand, was very kind. He reminded him softly, "Hurry up and run before they come." Ding Ming was unmoved. At this time, the beaten boy raised his right hand and turned on his wristband. There was a message on it. He said in a crying voice, "Fei, Brother Fei, I'm not Ding Ming. I. Damn, he couldn't say I anymore because he was so scared that he peed his pants. Zhu Fei was stunned. He bent down and looked. The student's name on the hologram was actually Shirley. F***CK. Zhu Fei spat a mouthful of saliva and stood up straight again. He tilted his neck and said nonchalantly, "Then I'm sorry. I hit the wrong person. Remember, I apologized. Don't play any tricks." At this time, there were not many people in the hall. Only Ding Ming and Xie Jian were still standing still. It was hard for Zhu Fei not to notice them. "Are you Ding Ming?" Zhu Fei swaggered over and looked down at Ding Ming. Compared to Ding Ming, his figure was like a city wall in front of a chicken. Before Ding Ming could say anything, Xie Jian had already walked up to them with a big smile on his face. Brother Fei, you're a big man. Let's..." His voice was suddenly cut off because Zhu Fei had kicked him in the stomach. "Get out of my way, slobber. Was I asking you a question?" This kick was not light at all. Xie Jian was forced to kneel on the ground. He held his stomach and vomited. This Zhu Fei did not mind the filth and actually observed his vomit with great interest. "Aha! You only ate meat like chicken thighs for lunch. You didn't even use any nutrient solution. Looks like you've been living a good life recently. Your saliva is firm. Pay 200 star coins later." Consider it the fee for imparting my experience. Do you hear me? Xie could not answer at all. He knelt there and vomited nonstop. He even vomited water. Dingming suddenly remembered what Yuman had said about passing on cultivation experience. It seemed like this Zhu Fei was used to being a tyrant, asking for 200 star coins. How was this a protection fee? This was simply extortion. At this time, Zhu Fei turned to Dingming. Kid, I heard that Hao Wei and Xiao were injured by you. Dingming still did not respond. He just looked at Xie thoughtfully. One of his lackeys was dissatisfied and said sternly, Hey, country bumpkin, Brother Fei asked you a question. Are you King Deaf? Zhu Fei looked at Dingming lazily, as if he was looking at meat on the chopping board. Kid, your Brother Fei, am actually a reasonable person. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and gently adjusted Dingming's collar. Look at yourself. You look like you're malnourished. I heard that you came from the countryside near Qingxi, so you probably don't have much money. How about this? Brother Fei will give you a discount. 300 star coins will be enough. We'll write off this debt. What do you think? Dingming suddenly smiled. There's only one bad thing about this idea. Oh, Zhu Fei was curious. What's wrong? Tell me. Dingming said, My cultivation is not very smooth. I hope Brother Fei can teach me some experience. As soon as he said this, his lackeys all opened their mouths wide. They looked as if they saw someone suddenly go crazy. You want Brother Fei to teach you some experience? With your small body, one kick would probably be enough to kill you. Zhu Fei also smiled. Kid, you're quite interesting. I really admire your spirit of asking for a beating. In his mind, killing Dingming with a single kick didn't bring him any pleasure. Thus, he looked around, and his gaze stopped on the punching machine that Xie was using just now. He rolled his eyes and said, That's right. Okay, I'll teach you some experience. I'll let a country bumpkin like you see the world. Otherwise, you'll be unwilling to pay for it. After he finished speaking, he took the initiative to stand on the boxing machine. He secretly used his origin energy and punched the target with a pa sound. The scoreboard immediately made a ding-ding-ding sound. The score was quickly displayed. 696 points. Good. His lackeys immediately clapped their hands and flattered him one after another. Brother Fei is awesome. You're awesome. Damn, you big egg. Am I seeing things? 696 points. Oh my god, this fist strength is at least in the top 5 in the school. Tis TSK. Brother Fei is Brother Fei. Look at this firmament palm. I won't be able to reach that level in my lifetime. Firmament palm? Brother Fei uses his fists. For eyes, are you blind? Oh, sorry, my eyes are blurry. I didn't see clearly. In the midst of a bunch of praises, Zhu Fei proudly withdrew his fist. He looked at Dingming with a playful expression. Kid, did you see clearly? Did you learn it? In the Lister Academy, 696 points was already considered high score. This had already exceeded the standard of an advanced origin ability user and had the potential to reach 1,000 points for an origin ability warrior. This also explained why Zhu Fei was able to casually kick an intermediate origin ability user like Xie to the ground. I also know this move. Dingming faintly smiled. He also walked onto the boxing machine. But I still have one more move. I'm just afraid you don't know it. Zhu Fei's face sank. Kid, don't play tricks with me. Do you want to die? Hurry up and hand over the money. Dingming was too lazy to answer him. His hand had already formed a hand blade shape. It stopped half a meter away from the target. What do you mean? Zhu Fei was puzzled. Dingming looked at him. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a sneer. That's what I mean. As his voice fell, the hand blade suddenly shook. It was as if it hadn't moved at all. At this time, the scoring machine immediately made a ding-ding-ding-ding-ding sound. It wasn't until 3 seconds later that the score appeared. At this moment, the entire hall fell into a deathly silence. The noisy voices of the underlings came to an abrupt end. Each of their eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. The score displayed on the scoring machine was 1,003 points. What? Zhu Fei's face was blank. Dingming withdrew his hand blade. He looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. Did you see it clearly? Did you learn it? Zhu Fei had just given him those words. Now, Ding Ming had returned them to him. The whole process took less than 10 seconds. At that moment, Zhu Fei seemed to have become much shorter. His fierce face turned into a flattering smile. He lowered his head and laughed. Village. Ai Baba. Look at my rotten mouth. It's Brother Ding, Boss Ding. Everyone calls him Brother Ding. Brother Ding, Brother Ding. The people in the hall scrambled to curry favor with him. Ding Ming smiled. Brother Fei, do you still need me to pay the tuition fee? No. You could just call me Xiao Zhu. Brother Ding, please don't make me feel uncomfortable. Zhu Fei was so scared that he almost jumped up. Brother Ding, I was just joking. Please don't take it seriously. How can I let you pay the tuition fee? Ding Ming stared at him. But you saw this move of mine. What do you think we should do? Zhu Fei's expression suddenly became bitter. Of course, Brother Ding will teach us your experience. We will pay the tuition fee. Ding Ming said, how about this? Since you failed the exam 4 times, I'll give you a discount. 600 star coins will do. What do you think? Chapter 81. At that moment, Xie Jian had finished vomiting. He did not know what had just happened. When he heard the conversation between Ding Ming and Zhu Fei, he began to doubt his life. Did I hear it right? Is there someone in this school who can make Zhu Fei pay tuition fees? When he heard that he would charge 600 star coins, Zhu Fei's face scrunched up. Sweat trickled down his forehead. Brother Ding, Boss Ding, he also couldn't say anymore. Even if it was Lei Bao in school, he would at most charge 400 star coins for 1 session. This Ding Ming was simply asking for an exorbitant price of 600 star coins for 1 session. Did she still want to give him a way out? Ding Ming glanced at him coldly. Do you have a problem with that? Zhu Fei's scalp went numb when he was glanced at. He quickly corrected himself. No problem at all. Ding Ming nodded. Not bad, but you don't have to give me the money. Give it to my cousin, you man from Class 7 of the 2nd Faculty of the Western District Boxing Force. Settle this matter today, and we'll call it even. Of course, I'll do it. Zhu Fei felt as if he had been pardoned. He turned his head and called out to his subordinates. Let's go. Hurry up. He could not help but be quick. After all, he had gone through 4 major exams, and he had a certain level of insight. Ding Ming's karate chop just now seemed to be an understatement, but in fact, it scared him out of his wits. Not to mention the super high score of 1,003 points, he could not see Ding Ming's move clearly. That alone was enough to prove that the strength of the 2 sides were not on the same level. Moreover, Ding Ming was so close to the target, and it seemed that he did not use his full strength. Obviously, he was holding back. If that karate chop had hit him, it would have been as easy as cutting vegetables. Such a person was completely a devil. He was blind to charge him protection fees. How Wei, you've caused a lot of trouble. I'm not done with you. As soon as Zhu Fei and his gang came out of the Advanced Training Center, they did not even wait for the inter-school space shuttle. They immediately ran to the teaching building in the West District. In the practice room on the 5th floor of Teaching Block 2, Yu Man and a group of students were practicing hard. This place couldn't be compared to the Advanced Training Center. The various facilities here were relatively simple. There was definitely no boxing machine, but the crystal boards on the wall were embedded with soft rubber targets. In the middle of the practice room, there was a simple ring where students could exchange pointers with each other. However, Yu Man couldn't concentrate on her training at this moment, because there were a few boys not far from the practice room who were looking at her with a mischievous smile and pointing at her from time to time. The leader was Genie Chin. Genie Chin could be considered as a big brother in the school. This guy was usually idle, ignorant, and incompetent. He had no talent and did not work hard to cultivate. Staying in the Leaston Academy was completely a waste of time. However, he was born with good looks and was quite popular with the female students. Therefore, he was quite good at flirting. However, since he made several female students in the West District pregnant, no one welcomed him anymore. It was said that one of the girls was ranked 42nd on the campus bell list. After he was dumped, he put on the stinky hat of a lecherous monster. No one in the school cared about him at all. However, In the past 6 months, he became active again because his sister, Jean Xiaoqi, was in a relationship with the notorious Lei Bao in the school. This guy came out again. Jeannie Chen had a special hobby of picking up girls. Those high and mighty goddesses or beautiful campus belle were not his first choice. His goal was to not let a virgin graduate from the Leaston Academy. It had to be said that this was an extremely difficult and great goal. He was often proud of it, conquering a virgin and also learning about love. Yu Man was originally not worthy of his attention, but he heard from his students in Class 7 that Yu Man had been studying at the Leaston Academy for 3 years and had almost no friends of the opposite sex. Therefore, he set his eyes on her. Yu Man's appearance was not ugly, but compared to the celebrities on the campus belle list, she was too far behind. Poverty was one of the reasons. For women, poverty meant that they were inferior in terms of appearance, such as clothing and accessories. Naturally, it was not easy to attract the attention of others. However, the more important reason was that in this era where originality and technology coexisted, civilian plastic surgery technology was already quite advanced. As long as one had money, even an ugly woman who could make you vomit out your food last night could be transformed into an unforgettable beauty overnight. No matter which planet, any city, or any street, you would almost never see an ugly woman. Therefore, the standard of beauty today was not as simple as their figure and appearance. Instead, they had to be categorized into 2 categories: natural beauty and artificial beauty. No matter how much plastic surgery was done on artificial beauties, you would still be able to see some clues. For example, the facial outline was obvious, the face was sharp, the eyebrows were sharp, and the skin would always look a little unnatural. However, natural beauties were different. No matter from which angle you looked at them, they were pleasing to the eye. That's right, it was the temperament that mattered. Yu Man obviously did not have a sharp face. Her round face was white with a hint of red. After intense exercise, beads of sweat slid down her face. Her face was rosy and healthy, like an apple. How could artificial beauties compare to this? Therefore, the more Jeannie Chen looked at her, the more satisfied he was. The more he looked, the more moved he was. He even took the initiative to greet her. "Oh man, are you done practicing? It's been hard on you." Jeannie Chen was a descendant of the Han clan in Huaxia. He had a unique face of the Han clan. He had a strong nose and double eyelids. There was a kind of heroic and delicate feeling between his eyebrows. Most girls liked this kind of look. In addition, his voice was very magnetic, and his attitude was gentle and polite. Under normal circumstances, he would leave a good impression on the opposite sex. If Yu Man did not know about his bad deeds in the past, she would also be deceived by this face. "Oh man, are you free tonight?" Jeannie Chen was very polite. A new music-themed restaurant opened in the Southern District. "The French steak is very good. You've been practicing for a day. Why don't we go and try it?" Yu Man's expression was very cold. "Sorry, I'm not free, and I'm not interested." Jeannie Chen's expression was thought-provoking, and his tone was meaningful. "Oh man, do me a favor. You don't know how many good things I've said about you in front of my sister. That's why Brother Bao and the others haven't made things difficult for you. I'm serious, and I'm very sincere. Oh man, why don't you consider it?" Yu Man's heart slightly sank. It must be known that the school's tuition fee was 1,000 star dollars per semester, and Lei Bao's group of people collected 300 to 400 star dollars per protection fee. It was almost half a year's worth of expenses for an ordinary student. She had just become an originality user, so naturally, she was the target of their attention. However, her father usually worked so hard to save money. Even if he did, he would not give it to this group of scum. However, when she thought about the methods Lei Bao and the others usually used to mess with people in school, it would be a lie to say that Yu Man was not afraid. There was a sister in the dormitory next door who came from Qingzi Town. Her family's financial situation was not very good, but she was lucky enough to become an originality user. Unfortunately, she was targeted by Lei Bao and the others. She definitely could not afford to pay. Thus, one day, just as she was about to leave school and go home, she encountered a group of unknown people. After a fight, the sister was seriously injured. She was saved by the medical pod, but her heart and brain were heavily injured. Her senses were destroyed, and her origin ability was almost impossible to absorb. Her future was basically ruined. This matter was very big. The public security office and the shelter were involved, and the school also sent out an investigation team. The sister's parents went to the school, and in the end, the school had to pay a large sum of money. The public security office arrested a large number of people, and in the end, the matter was left unsettled. The problem was that Lei Bao and the others were not affected at all. They were still swaggering around the school, as usual. This gave the other students a huge sense of fear. This group of people really could not be provoked. Jeannie Chin saw her hesitant expression and took the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. "Aw man, you know that my sister and brother Bao are reasonable people. They never make things difficult for their own people. My feelings for you." He did not finish his words because at this moment, the door of the practice room was kicked open with a bang. A large group of people rushed in from outside. Jeannie Chin's eyes suddenly lit up, so it's Brother Fei. Chapter 82. As soon as Zhu Fei came in, the whole practice room became quiet. No one dared to make a sound. Jeannie Chin was shocked. "Brother Fei, what brings you here?" Zhu Fei was too lazy to care about him. He quickly walked in front of you, man. "Xiao man." "Oh, no, it's on man. Oh, no, it's sister man. Hello, sister man. I came here specially to find you." His words stunned everyone in the practice room. The fat pig was so polite to you, man. It seemed that he wanted to worship you, man, as if she was his ancestor. You, man, was also stunned. Zhu Fei was notorious, so she was very nervous. Brother Fei, why are you looking for me? What could it be?" Zhu Fei had been collecting money along the way and found that he only had 400 star coins. He was still more than 100 star coins away from 600 star coins. If he did not have enough money, he could find a way to make up for it slowly, but he must have a good attitude. If Ding Ming found out that he was trying to cheat, the consequences, he could not imagine and did not dare to think about it. So when he found out Yu Man's student number, he immediately pressed the button on his wristwatch. He didn't feel the slightest bit of heartache as the money flowed out like water. But Yu Man was dumbfounded. There was a message on her wristwatch. Zhu Fei has transferred 466 star coins to her. Could this be a new trick they had up their sleeves? Yu Man asked with fear, "Brother Fei, what are you?" Zhu Fei immediately interrupted her with a sincere expression. "Sister man, don't worry. I promise that I will transfer the remaining 100 star coins before 12 o'clock tonight. You can practice at ease. When the time comes, please put in a good word for me in front of Brother Ding." "Brother Ding?" Yu Man was dumbfounded. "Did Brother Ding Ming ask you to come here?" We heard her call Ding Ming her brother. Zhu Fei finally felt relieved. It seemed that Yu Man was really Ding Ming's cousin. Jeannie Chin, this reckless guy, dared to have ideas about her. Damn it, you don't want to go to heaven, but you want to go to hell? Jeannie Chin was also shocked by this strange scene. He took the initiative to step forward and whispered, "Brother Fei, oh man, and I have already made an appointment. Do you like her?" "What the F***CK?" Zhu Fei immediately slapped him. "Who the F***CK do you think you are? Are you a toad that wants to eat swan meat?" Jeannie Chin was slapped so hard that he fell to the ground. He saw stars in front of his eyes, and his nose was hot. He touched it with his hand. It was actually blood. He looked at Zhu Fei in disbelief and said in a trembling voice, You hit me?" Zhu Fei said sternly, "What? You're not convinced? It's already a light punishment for me to hit you. Is Sister Man someone you can touch?" F***CK. Jeannie Chin was also dumbfounded. Man, she is just, is. He didn't finish his sentence, but Zhu Fei understood what he meant. He meant that Yu Man was just an ordinary student with no power behind her. So what if she was bullied? Zhu Fei glared at him. "I'm telling you, from now on, whoever is rude to Sister Man is rude to Brother Ding. Whoever is rude to Brother Ding. Don't blame me for going all out with him. F***CK. Who is Brother Ding?" Jeannie Chin was puzzled. There was no one with the surname Ding among the powerful people in the school. Zhu Fei looked at him with disappointment. Listen carefully. Brother Ding is Sister Man's cousin. Do you understand? Jeannie Chin certainly didn't understand. Man's cousin? But my sister is Jean Xiaoqi. She and Brother Bao. When he mentioned his sister, Zhu Fei got angry. He rushed up and picked him up like a chicken and slapped him a few more times. Look at you. You think you're so great just because you rely on your sister? Isn't she just a slut? Look at you. You only know how to take advantage of girls. Haven't you seen a woman before? Jeannie Chin almost fainted from a slap, but his gang had always been stubborn. You hit me? If Brother Bao knows, you'll... Zhu Fei was too lazy to explain to him this time. In his eyes, Jeannie Chin was a standard piece of trash. He didn't have any skills and only knew how to pick up girls. To borrow Hao Wei's logic, you don't even have the ability to collect protection fees. If you're not trash, then what is? It's a waste of my strength to hit you. So, Zhu Fei simply waved his hand. Brothers, shut this guy up. As soon as he finished speaking, the men behind him immediately rushed up and performed the group beating skill Stomp wildly. In just 10 seconds, Jeannie Chin fainted and lay on the ground like a dead dog. He was out of breath and could only breathe out. At this moment, his nose was no longer straight because it was broken. His single eyelid could no longer be seen because there were footprints all over it. As for the impression of a Han Clan handsome man with a combination of heroic and delicate aura. Sorry, Zhu Fei, beat up handsome men, especially handsome men from the Han Clan. I told you to pick up girls. I told you to act cool. Kneel down now. All the students in the practice room were still in shock. Zhu Fei nodded and bowed in front of you man again. Sister man, you can practice in peace. This guy definitely won't harass you in the future. Don't worry, he's a retard. You don't have to pay attention to him. This is my number. You can call me if you need anything. If there's nothing else, then I'll leave first. Until Zhu Fei left with a group of people, Yu Man was still in a state of confusion. It took her a long time to notice Jeannie Chin, who was beaten half to death on the ground. It turned out that all this was not an act, nor was an illusion. It was a real tragedy. The problem that had troubled her for a long time was solved by Zhu Fei in a short time. The key point was that she received a large sum of money inexplicably. What was going on? Zhu Fei was called by Ding Ming's brother? No, I have to find Ding Ming's brother. He really couldn't find it even if he wanted to. The area in Mingyu District had been completely demolished by all kinds of robots of all sizes. It was completely flattened. Isn't he here to listen to the class? Asked a girl with heavy makeup. She was Jeannie Chin's sister, Jean Xiaoqi. The news that Jeannie Chin was beaten up by Zhu Fei in the afternoon had spread all over the Western District. It was hard for her not to know. The key point was that Zhu Fei had disappeared. No one knew where he ran to hide. That traitor, Jean Xiaoqi, was simply flustered and exasperated. He's rebelling. He followed Brother Bao and actually beat up his own people. But that Ding Ming really has some skills. The person who answered her was Hao Wei. He had used the medical cabin to recover his health, but this didn't mean that he didn't have a deep impression of Ding Ming. Jean Xiaoqi sneered. No matter how strong he is, can he be stronger than Brother Bao? Hao Wei also nodded in agreement. Even if Ding Ming was an advanced origin ability user, he couldn't be compared to Brother Bao. Lei Bao was one of the students that teacher Jia Fa was most proud of in the Northern District's Fist Force Department 1 Class 1. Currently, he had reached the standard of an origin ability user. He was just waiting for the school's examination to be certified. More than 100 students passed each examination at least in academy. In other words, no matter how bad Lei Bao was, he could still be ranked in the top 100. Teacher Jia Fa was the most famous Fist Force teacher in the academy. At least 20 of his students passed the examination each time. Lei Bao was his favorite student. It wouldn't be a problem for him to be ranked in the top 15. Ding Ming was just a student of an unpopular subject. Even if he had some skills, he couldn't compete with Lei Bao. Did Ding Ming dare to say that he could be ranked in the top 20 of the school? He dared to instigate that fat pig to beat up my Xiao Chun? Jean Xiaoqi suddenly turned around, a cold light flashing in her eyes. I don't believe that Ding Ming can hide. I have plenty of ways to make him come out. Chapter 83. Dingming couldn't possibly roll out of the Advanced Training Center on his own. He hadn't left the Advanced Training Center since he entered. He had basically explored all 9 floors of the center, going to any place that could help him in his cultivation, such as the strength training hall, the gravity room, the sensing room, the simulation room. However, after walking around for a while, he finally returned to the meditation hall on the first floor. Although martial techniques were important to him, they were definitely not as important as cultivation techniques. It was necessary for him to enter the observation phase of the 5th origin. Ever since Zhu Fei had been intimidated by him on the 2nd floor, Zijian had become his loyal follower. He was extremely friendly towards him and had even taken the initiative to give him 15 academy points. 15 points was 150 star coins. This was not a small sum, but giving it to Dingming was much better than giving it to Zhu Fei. At the very least, staying by Dingming's side would guarantee his safety. At this moment, Dingming was lying down in the sensing cabin. According to Zijian's instructions, Dingming opened the mini photon computer in the cabin and selected the exchange shop column. This exchange shop was naturally a virtual one. The prices of various enhancement items were listed. Flame Energy Potion, Thermal Element, 5-star coins. Ice Sealing Liquid, Ice Element, 6-star coins. Hunter Mixture, Light Element, 5-star coins. Corruption Mixture, Electromagnetic Element, 7-star coins. Scarlet Star Lizard Flame Product, Biochemical Element, 8-star coins. Compound Potion, suitable for light, ice, and wind elements, 9-star coins. Universal Potion, suitable for all elements, 12-star coins. These amplification potions were specially made according to the different faculties. The Flame Energy Potion was a unique amplification potion of the Listen Academy. After using it, one would be able to greatly increase one's training speed. A similar amplification potion would cost 24-star coins, which was almost 5 times the market price. This was one of the reasons why the Listen Academy was so popular among the students. After using points to purchase, the sensing cabin would not provide you with the actual item. Instead, a healing gun would extend from the cabin and directly inject the potion into your body. As soon as the potion dissolved into his blood, Dingming felt a thin but strange heat flow. After this heat flow passed through his heart, the 4 origin points began to rotate rapidly. The absorption, modification, and diffusion of origin energy were much faster than before. After the heat flowed into his brain, Dingming felt that his brain was particularly relaxed, and his consciousness was clearer. Even his thinking speed was faster, and it was easier for him to concentrate. The effect of this was the enhancement of his memory. Previously, Dingming had relied on nutrient solutions to support his cultivation. However, after taking the amplification elixir, the time he spent was greatly reduced. From another perspective, the benefit of the amplification elixir was that it saved him both time and nutrient solutions. Dingming only needed 2 hours and 23 minutes to observe the 5th origin. That was enough time for him to memorize its internal structure. The 4th origin, on the other hand, was not even 1/3 as complex as the 5th origin. It took him more than 3 hours just to observe it. Little Rascal said, "The effects of this flame energy elixir can last for 23 days. According to my calculations, it can increase your cultivation speed by 20%, Dingming." A 20% increase in cultivation speed would only appear on origin energy cultivators. It would not be possible for high-level origin energy cultivators. This was because there were great differences between people, and the same elixir would have different effects on different people. Dingming was also aware of this. Elixirs were not without their hidden dangers. In particular, the more amplification elixirs one consumed, the greater the body's resistance to them. In the end, similar elixirs would become practically useless. It was precisely because his current level was low, and this was his first time using the elixir, that the effects were relatively obvious. As for high-level origin energy cultivators and war supremacies, The amplification elixirs they used were all extremely rare and precious. They would be thanking the gods if they could increase their cultivation speed by 4 or 5%. Just as he finished observing the fifth origin, his wristwatch vibrated. The system notified him that he had received a new message. Ding Meng had no choice but to exit the consciousness space and open the screen. Elder Zhao's face immediately appeared on the screen. Ding Meng, are you cultivating in the sensing cabin? Yes. Ding Meng nodded. What is it, Teacher Zhao? Elder Zhao revealed a smile. That's perfect. Since you're cultivating in the sensing cabin, it saves me the trouble of running around. I have 2 sets of teaching materials here that I can send over to you. Study them well. Right? Your status as a student has been resolved. From now on, you're an official student of our school. Thank you. Thank you so much, Teacher Zhao. Ding Meng was overjoyed. The so-called teaching materials were either cultivation technique chips or secret manuals that recorded the insights and tricks of the instructors. They were usually integrated into memory chips or smart chips and could only be used by embedding them in the sensing cabin. However, the school had a student qualification certification system, so they could be directly transmitted through the school's internal network. Ding Meng had Little Rascal with him. It only took a few seconds for Little Rascal to copy the contents of the teaching materials and move them into the consciousness space. Zhao's solitary sword, training method, and ancient sects, 12 forms of the heavenly sword. Ding Meng was excited. Not only did the 2 teaching materials describe in detail the things to pay attention to during cultivation, they also came with a virtual demonstration. He could tell at a glance that it was Teacher Zhao when he was young. Every set of movements was labeled with a description. However, after reading the description, Ding Meng could only bitterly sigh. Classical sword techniques were indeed classical sword techniques. It was not something that could be comprehended by just anyone. Using qi to control the sword, circling into the ground. The sword reaches the spirit of qi, turning into a circle. Using qi to control the sword, crossing the river on a reed. Controlling the sword, the form follows the sword. The point of the sword is like an alligator soaring into the sky. Its strength is like a dragon. Its form is like the wind. Coiling dragon flips body. Spirit sword touches water. Qi turns spirit platform, transforming into a dragon to vanquish demons. Mirage flower, water moon, formless sword. Turning body, soaring into the sky with sword in hand. Qi turns into a soaring eagle. Tip turns into the ground. Sword reflects the void, vanquishing the enemy. The essence of the sword, qi moves, body dense mist, unity of heaven and man. Intent precedes sword, divine might destroys the enemy. This, Ding Meng was completely dumbfounded. Little Rascal, can you understand this? Little Rascal couldn't understand it either. You'll probably have to practice according to the movements to understand the meaning. There was no way to cultivate martial arts in the sensory cabin, but judging from these sword techniques, it probably wasn't suitable to practice them in the training center. After all, these were Elder Zhao's painstaking efforts, and it wasn't suitable for outsiders to see them. In that case, he might as well try to construct the starting point first. In reality, if he wanted to cultivate steadily, it wouldn't go smoothly. Since the school's wristwatch was installed on his wrist, it was destined that all kinds of things would follow. The wristwatch notified him that there was a new message. Ding Meng really didn't want to leave the consciousness space, so he could only ask Little Rascal. There aren't many people who know my serial number. Who's it this time? Little Rascal jumped up and down in his field of vision, clearly expressing its dissatisfaction. Who else could it be? Your cousin, of course. Yuman's face quickly appeared on the screen. Looking at the background behind her, she should be in the training room, but Yuman's expression looked a little panicked. Sister Man, what's the matter? Ding Meng asked. Yuman's voice was very low. Brother Ding Meng, bad news. Lei Bao said that he's coming to find me tomorrow. Ding Meng frowned. Why is he looking for you? To collect protection fees? Yuman nodded. Yes, he wants everyone in this dorm to pay. Ding Meng asked, how much does he want? Yuman said, 400 star coins per person. Then just give it to him. Ding Meng, said unconcernedly. His line of thinking was actually quite reasonable. You want money? Fine, I'll give you money. Hurry up and leave after you take the money. Don't delay our cultivation. Anyway, this money was swindled from Zhu Fei. We have nothing to lose. The right thing to do is to hurry up and cultivate. Why waste time with some hooligans in school? In fact, Yuman also thought so, but she kept feeling that something was wrong. The news of Zhu Fei beating up Jin Chen during the day had spread like wildfire in the Western District. Jin Chen being beaten up would naturally alarm Jin Xiaoqi, and once Jin Xiaoqi found out, she would sooner or later alert Lei Bao. Now that Lei Bao had said something, it would be strange if Yuman wasn't nervous. After all, she was a poor student. It was normal for her to be afraid when it came to these kinds of things. If she was a rich and powerful student, it would be strange if Lei Bao dared to charge her money. Chapter 84. There were a total of 4 girls in Yuman's dormitory. The reason they shared the same dormitory was because all 4 of them were from Qingzi Town. Yuman was the youngest among them, and she was the only one who came from Qingxi Village. The other 3 girls usually took good care of her. Although the 4 girls were relatively poor students, after 3 years of living together, their relationship was closer than that of real sisters. The 4 of them had only sensed origin ability this year. It was reasonable to say that a bright future had finally arrived. However, Lei Bao had sent someone to pass on a message last night that he wanted to impart his cultivation experience, causing the 4 of them to suddenly feel a great fear. The eldest sister, Zhumin, had always been calm. After thinking about it, she still comforted her 3 friends. Isn't it just 400 star coins? Just give it to him. We trained for 3 years and finally became origin ability users. We can't let anything happen at this juncture. Just treat it as spending money to buy safety. After passing the exam, there will still be a bright future waiting for us. Don't lose the big picture for the small. Bear with it for a while. A man's conditions aren't good. I'll help you pay for it. Since it was the eldest sister who got the attention, the 4 sisters continued to go to the 5th floor's practice room early in the morning. Everyone didn't dare to slack off for a moment because their respective families were doing their best to support their studies. However, just as she pushed open the door of the practice room, Zhumin felt that something was wrong because Lei Bao's group had already arrived. Lei Bao himself was sitting in front of the podium, surrounded by more than 10 men and women. She recognized almost all of them: Jin Xiaoqi, Hao Wei, and Xiaoan, Du Ziding, Zhu Yichun, and the most terrifying of all, Hong Mei. Hong Mei's real name was Hong Mei, and she was also a senior student of Leaston Academy. She was originally very talented, but after entering the academy, she was obsessed with plastic surgery. For the past 2 years, she would go to the beauty center every few days to have her face changed. After plastic surgery, she looked like a product that didn't even look like a product. Her appearance couldn't be considered ugly, but it was incomparably strange. Colorful short hair, a face that was as sharp as a nail, and her cheekbones were particularly prominent. She looked like a snake spirit. Of course, he didn't pass the first exam, but he transferred to the North District's Fist Force faculty, Class 1. Under teacher Jiafa's guidance, his strength improved by leaps and bounds. He was one of the top students who had a chance of passing the exam this year. And because she had fought a few beautiful fights with people in school, her fame spread through the North, West, and South districts, so it was homonym for Little Sister Red. This Red sister had a strange hobby. She did not like to deal with male students, and she was especially hostile towards females. Whenever Lei Bao and the others caused trouble for the females, it was always Red's sister who dealt with them. Her methods were rather brutal. It was said that the attack on Yuman's dorm mates outside the school was secretly ordered by Little Sister Hong. When they saw Hong Mei in the practice room, Zhumin and the others felt that something was amiss. Looking at Hong Mei's black leather jumpsuit and shiny boxing gloves that extended to her elbows, Zhumin could already smell the danger. She turned her head and whispered, "What's wrong?" "Something's wrong. Oh man, leave here first and find Teacher Sue." As soon as Yuman turned around, she felt a gust of wind. Before she could see the person clearly, Hong Mei had already blocked her path and looked at her with a smile. Hee hee, since you're already here, don't be in a hurry to leave. Zhuo Min frowned and asked coldly, what do you want? Jean Xiaoqi, who was below the podium, had already stood up. Her face was very gloomy. Same old rules. Aren't you guys practicing? We're here to teach you fist techniques today. It's voluntary. There's no coercion. The muscles at the corner of Zhuo Min's eyes twitched. She replied coldly, we're students from the West District, and we also have our own fist technique teacher, Teacher Su Weiman. We don't need students from the North District to teach us, right? This was a typical case of wishful thinking. Lei Bao and the others were already here, and things had already reached this point. There was no point in saying these things. Jean Xiaoqi snorted coldly. The North District's fist technique course is obviously not comparable to the West District's. We're here today to help our students better cultivate. You can leave now. If you miss this opportunity, don't regret it in the future. This was a blatant threat. Seeing more than a dozen people staring at her, Zhuo Min sighed slightly. Okay, Sister Qi, how do you want to collect the tuition fees? We'll just pay. Howei stood up at this time. The screen on his wristband was already turned on. Same old rules. 400 star coins per person. Points are fine too. Just transfer it to my number. Okay. Zhuo Min had no choice but to turn on her wristband as well. After the screen lit up, she entered her number and password and transferred 400 star coins from her personal information card. With her taking the lead, the second sister, Jiang Lily, and the third sister, Akasu, could only lower their heads and pay the money. Howei kept his right hand raised, keeping the screen in the state of currency transactions. However, when it was Zhuo Min's turn to walk up, she finally said, wait, what do you want to do? Jean Xiaoqi immediately stared at her. Zhuo Min said, I'll pay our man's share for her. Lei Bao, who had been sitting in the chair without speaking, finally said lazily, you'd better not pay for her. Zhuo Min said why. Lei Bao leaned forward slightly, looking down at her like a leopard, because her tuition fees are different. I'm afraid you can't afford it. Zhuo Min couldn't take it anymore. Her tone had a hint of anger. Why are they different? Lei Bao was too lazy to pay attention to her. Howei spoke for Lei Bao. Oh man, 400 star coins is not enough. You have to pay 4,000 star coins. What did you say? Zhuo Min was furious. 4,000 star coins was equivalent to 4 years of tuition for a student. Not to mention that she could not afford it. Even if she could, she would not hand it over. This was no longer as simple as a protection fee. It was simply robbery. Lei Bao turned his head and glanced at Red Sister. It seems that her hearing is not good. She can't hear what we are talking about. Go and make her hear clearly. Red Sister appeared in front of Zhuo Min in the blink of an eye. Zhuo Min couldn't react at all. Red Sister's palm slapped Zhuo Min's ear, causing her to fall to the ground. This slap caused Zhuo Min to see stars and her nose to bleed. Sister Min, you man, and the other two exclaimed and ran over. Red Sister smiled and glanced at Zhuo Min, who was lying on the ground. He, did you hear clearly this time? You man's eyes were filled with anger. Why do I have to pay 4,000 star coins? This is not fair. Fair? Red Sister smiled again, as if she was looking at a pitiful worm. In our Norse Empire, have you ever seen any fairness? You man understood what she meant. The Norse Empire advocated force, and least in school was no exception. Did you think the school didn't know about protection fee? That would depend on who was collecting the fee. Zhuo Min crawled up from the ground, her eyes filled with anger. You mean, if we can beat you, we don't have to pay the fee? Huh. Red Sister smiled even more happily. You think a worm like you can beat me? I'm not a worm. Zhuo Min retorted angrily. Red Sister touched the gloves on her forearms and said proudly, if I say you're a worm, then you're a worm. Zhuo Min clenched her teeth. She could tell that Lei Bao and his group weren't here to collect protection fee. They were here to deal with the four of them. Seeing her unconvinced expression, Red Sister became even more interested. Don't be unconvinced. If you have the guts, then come and try. You'll know that I'm not lying. Don't even think about beating me. If you can even land a hit on me, then I'll consider it your win. I'll even refund all the fees to you, but her tone changed again as she pointed at Zhuo Min. If you can't hit me, then you still have to pay 4,000 star coins. Zhuomin gritted her teeth and said, You said it yourself. I said it, so I'll keep my word. Red Sister hooked her finger at her. Come and hit me. Chapter 85. Zhuomin didn't waste any time. She rushed forward and threw out a punch. She was also using a basic fist technique like Bright Fist, and she was even more proficient in it than in Xiao, and it could be seen that she had put in a lot of effort to practice it. As she threw out punch after punch, there were even faint pung sounds of explosions in the air. Unfortunately, when faced with a high-level origin ability user like Hong Mei, the bright fist of an ordinary origin ability user was really just a flowery fist with no practical footwork. Don't even talk about hitting her. She couldn't even see Hong Mei's floating figure clearly. In the middle of the practice room, there was only a black shadow flashing back and forth, just like a demonic mass of chaos. Hong Mei cultivated light origin ability. This type of origin ability user focused on their body movement, footwork, reaction, and agility. They focused on speed and were very difficult opponents to deal with in actual combat. Zhuomin's bright fist was thrown out, but she couldn't even touch the corner of her opponent's clothes. Hong Mei retreated far away, the corner of her mouth revealing a disdainful sneer. Are you done? Now it's my turn, right? With a pung sound, Zhuomin suddenly bent over in pain. Before she could completely bend over, Hong Mei's uppercut hit her chin. Zhuomin flew out like a kite with a broken string. Her entire body smashed into the soft rubber target on the wall and fell down. This scared Yuman and the other two. They quickly rushed over to help Zhuomin up. Zhuomin's front teeth had been knocked out, and her chin was dislocated. Blood flowed out from her mouth. Hong Mei stood there confidently and smiled. How is it? Little reptile, are you convinced now? Zhuomin's sounds were unclear, but the expression on her face was even more furious. She broke through the crowd and threw herself at Hong Mei without a care for anything else. She had clearly lost her mind and was ready to fight with her life on the line. She felt that she was about to explode, but in the eyes of others, it wasn't the case. Hong Mei reached out and grabbed her by the back of her neck, lifting her up as if she was carrying a duck that was struggling for its life. Hee, little reptile, are you still not convinced? Zhuomin was already powerless to retaliate, so she simply spat out a mouthful of blood. Little Red's snake-like face was immediately dyed red, making her look even more like the face of a female demon. Red Sister's expression changed instantly, and a ferocious glint flashed at her eyes. You're courting death. After that, she grabbed Zhuomin's neck with her left hand and punched Zhuomin's heart with her right hand. The sound of bones breaking could be heard clearly in the training room. Thermodynamic ability users usually constructed their origin points from a heart. Currently, Zhuomin had yet to construct her origin point. All she had was her perception point. How could she withstand such a heavy blow? Sister Hong clearly wanted to cripple her. Stop, don't fight. Yuman and the other two rushed up to him. Do you think I won't fight just because you told me not to? Little Red casually swung her arm, and Zhuomin's entire body smashed towards the three of them. The three of them immediately collapsed to the ground. Zhuomin was completely covered in blood. She curled up into a ball on the ground. She had already fainted, but her body was still trembling spontaneously. Obviously, she was seriously injured. Yuman was also angry. She stood up and glared at Jin Xiaoqi. You bastard, come at me instead of Sister Min. She also understood that because of Genie Chin, Jin Xiaoqi had specifically come to cause trouble for her. She didn't expect that Zhuomin would be beaten up for no reason. However, the person who answered her this time was Lei Bao. Lei Bao's tone became thoughtful. I heard that fat pig gave you 600 star coins and said that Ding Meng asked him to transfer it to you. Yuman's heart sank. She thought that Lei Bao was coming for her. She didn't expect that Lei Bao's target was actually Ding Meng. Lei Bao sneered. It seems that your cousin from the countryside is quite capable. He's also very good at finding money. Yuman stared at him with hatred. What do you want? Lei Bao waved his hand. Ask your cousin to come to me with 8,000 star coins and apologize to Yi-Chin formally. Then I'll let it go. If I don't see him before 12 o'clock tomorrow, I'll come to you again. At that time, I won't be able to get through as easily as today. After that, he got up and walked towards the door. As soon as he got up, the others followed him. Before leaving, Jean Xiaoqi glanced at Yu Man proudly. Xiao Man, I already reminded you not to take too long to think about it. Now, you even implicated your roommate. Why do you have to do this? Yu Man was flustered and exasperated. She shouted, Jean Xiaoqi, you are simply shameless. How dare you talk back? Kneel down. Little Sister Hong directly threw a punch at Yu Man. Yu Man had no strength to resist at all. Her shoulder made a crisp kacha sound as she clutched her shoulder and fell down. Man? Jiang Lily and Akasu also exclaimed and ran over. A group of good-for-nothings. What a waste of my time. Hong Mei shook her neck and moved her joints. Then she also left. Jiang Lily and Akasu were completely frightened at this time. They turned on their wristbands and desperately called, Mr. Su, is that Mr. Su? Zuomin was seriously injured by people from the boxing department. What should we do? Yu Man was also injured. The image of a middle-aged man with a kind face appeared on the screen. What happened? Who injured her? Jiang Lily cried and said, It was Lei Bao and Hong Mei from the boxing department of the Northern District. Su Weiman's face also showed a trace of anger. Why is it this group of students again? They make trouble every day. Are Xiao Min and Man seriously injured? Akasu also cried, Sister Min's breathing is so weak. I'm afraid she can't make it. Mr. Su, what should we do? Su Weiman seemed to suck in a breath of cold air. His face also became serious. Listen up, you two. Hurry up and carry them to the Western District Medical Department for emergency treatment. I'll go inform Mr. Jiafa. I'll be there soon. At the same time, in the Advanced Training Center, Ding Meng was still lying in the induction cabin, constructing the origin point. He was already a third of the way to the 5th point. Just as he was concentrating, the wristband, in an unfriendly manner, vibrated again. Little rascal couldn't help but sigh. If you ask me, you shouldn't accept this thing. There are too many trivial things all day long. It affects your cultivation. Ding Meng also sighed. Let's connect it. Zhu Fei's flattering face quickly appeared on the screen. Brother Ding, sorry to disturb you. Ding Meng said, what do you want? Zhu Fei's expression also became serious. Brother Ding, this isn't about me. It's about you. Sister Man's roommates were beaten up by Lei Bao and the others. They're seriously injured. They're now in the medical department for emergency treatment. Ding Meng didn't get angry or stand up in shock as he imagined. Ding Meng was very calm. What about Sister Man? Zhu Fei said Sister Man was also injured. She was also sent to the medical department. Her roommates carried her there. Okay, I got it. Ding Meng silently turned off the communication. Chapter 86. The Western District's medical office was right next to the teaching building. It was a Baroque building that looked like a church. At this moment, two middle-aged men were arguing on the lawn outside the infirmary. One of them was Su Weiman, the teacher of the 2 faculties of fist force in the Western region. The other was a slightly younger and handsome man. He was Jia Fa, the teacher of the most famous faculties of fist force in the Northern region. Su Weiman looked very anxious. Teacher Jia Fa, you should really restrain your students. They're too lawless. Teacher Su, don't worry. I'll reprimand them when I get back. Jia Fa's expression also looked a little regretful. Although he said that, he didn't think so in his heart. It's normal for students to spar, but your Western District students are too useless. They can't even take a few punches and kicks. How can they establish themselves outside like this? Besides, it's none of your business whether I restrain them or not. However, Su Weiman was dissatisfied with his answer. How can you just reprimand them? Jia Fa didn't get angry. He calmly asked, Then what do you need me to do, Teacher Su? Su Weiman was stunned by his question. Yes, what do you need me to do? Apologize? If apologizing was useful, Lei Bao and the others could apologize to Zuo Min 100 times. They wouldn't lose anything anyway. Compensate them? It wasn't as if Lei Bao and the others couldn't fork out the money. As for expulsion, it was impossible to expel them. The school didn't have that much power. The Listen Academy wasn't a public school in the empire. It was a membership school. It was the school's board of directors who could expel anyone. Lei Bao and Hong Mei's batch of students were the ones that the board of directors thought would pass the exam. Once they passed, the school would receive the corresponding rewards from the empire. The board of directors was counting on this batch of students. That was why Lei Bao and the others dared to do whatever they wanted. The school always turned a blind eye to it. While Su Weimin was in a daze, the medical office's door was pushed open. Yu Man and the other two teary-eyed Zhuomin came out with a pale face. The bloodstains on Zhuomin's clothes were still clearly visible. Su Weimin quickly went up to them. "How are you? Are you okay?" His life would definitely be saved. The medical department also used the angel-type medical cabin. No matter how serious the injuries were, they would be able to save him. Akasu replied tearfully, "Sister Min, she..." Zhuomin's skull was slightly fractured, and 8 of her ribs were broken. Of course, these were all minor problems. The major problem was that some of the broken ribs had pierced in her heart, and her heart had suffered a heavy blow. The school doctor in the medical administration department had already informed Zhuomin. It would be best to go to the sensory cabin and test it out to see if the sensory points were damaged. If there was a problem with the sensory points, then the situation would not be good. The school doctor didn't dare to speak too harshly, but everyone understood what he meant. Under normal circumstances, those who had just sensed a weak origin ability were not considered true origin ability users. With such a huge impact to the heart, it would be difficult for them to sense origin ability users in the future. Ordinary humans like Yuman and Zhuomin had to start training from a young age. It took years of meditation and practice to awaken their perception. If they were to start over now, they would miss the golden period. There was no future to speak of. Hearing this, Su Weimin was furious. Lei Bao, are these people still students? How are they any different from the criminals outside? Jia Fa had been patient this entire time. He had come from a northern district to the western district just to go through the motions and comfort these students. He had seen and done this kind of thing many times, so he was already numb to it. In addition, his status in the school was high, so the other teachers couldn't say much, let alone speak harshly. But now that he heard Su Weimin describe his students as criminals, he immediately became angry. "Teacher Su, please pay attention to your words." Su Weimin was furious. "Words? I'm already being very polite. These people are just scum. Even if they become origin ability warriors in the future, the military won't want them." Jia Fa calmly said, "If they can't even become origin ability warriors, then the military won't want them." Su Weimin glared at him. "Teacher Jia Fa, it's fine if you don't say anything, but you don't even have a basic attitude. Instead, you're protecting them. As a teacher, don't you feel ashamed? Are you worthy of being called a teacher?" Jia Fa was also angry. "Ashamed? The person who should be ashamed isn't me, right? In the previous exams, the students I taught had the highest passing rate in the entire school. What about you, Teacher Su? What kind of students do you teach? They can't even deal with the basic punches and kicks of origin ability users. Should you feel ashamed? Or should I be more worthy of being called a teacher?" Su Weimin was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. You're just a robber. You let high-level origin ability users and perceptors fight. Is there even a need to ask the results? It's like a chicken fighting a horse. Is there even a need to say who's going to win?" Jia Fa coldly looked at him, as if he was looking at an ignorant person who didn't know what he was talking about. "So you also know that you're a fist technique teacher, and I'm also a fist technique teacher. There's no difference between us. The students you teach are chickens, and the students I teach are horses. Who can you blame? Are you blaming me? If you're incompetent, then don't blame others. Many people have this problem. They don't want to find fault with themselves." Su Weimin was so angry that his whole body trembled. He couldn't speak at all, but at this moment, a cold and indifferent voice came from behind him. "What you mean is that those who are weak should be beaten and should die, right? Is that what you mean?" His voice wasn't loud, but there was an oppressive coldness in his cold tone, causing others to feel an indescribable chill. Jia turned around and saw two people, both wearing the school uniform. He couldn't help but frown and reveal a dignified expression. "Which department are you students from?" Ding Ming was too lazy to pay attention to him. Ding Ming ignored him, so his loyal follower wouldn't open his mouth. Ding Ming directly walked towards Yuman's sister man. "I'm here, little brother Ding Ming." Yuman's tears suddenly poured out. She didn't cry when she was beaten, but now that she saw Ding Ming, she actually cried. "What's wrong?" Ding Ming pulled on her sleeve to comfort her. Yuman choked with sobs. Sister Min is also from Verntarn town. Her father passed away, and her mother was a delivery woman in town. She had been living frugally to send her here, but now, everything is gone. She couldn't finish her sentence, but Ding Ming completely understood what she meant. Just a moment ago, he was 40 meters away, but his telekinesis vision had already heard the entire conversation. If this was in the past, Ding Ming wouldn't be moved at all. He had always pursued the principle of independence. The life and death of others had nothing to do with him. But ever since he came to Qingxi Farm and entered normal society, he gradually understood the difficulties of poor students like Yuman after witnessing the situation of old Yu's family with his own eyes. In Heijin Base, everyone sought survival. If they couldn't avoid death, then they would accept it. If they died, then they died. Death might be a relief. But if Lei Bao and the others ran amok, not only would Zhuamin and the others not die, but they would also suffer endless pain and torture. Their families, who were already full of hardships, would also be implicated. When little Four died, Ding Ming didn't feel angry. Instead, he pulled himself together and became even more determined. Even when he saw Yuman and Zhuamin in their current state, he still remained calm. But when he heard Jia Fa and Su Weiman's quarrel, an evil fire rose in his chest. He couldn't help but secretly sigh. "I really don't understand. Why do people always like to bully those who are weaker than themselves?" Little Rascal also sighed. "Bullying the weak and fearing the strong is one of your human nature. I know. The weak are prey to the strong, and the survival of the fittest." Ding Ming's gaze turned to Jia Fa. If he bullied them, then so be it. But when he bullied them, he still acted like it was natural and self-righteous. "This guy is really hateful." Little Rascal immediately agreed. "That's right. He doesn't look like a teacher at all. His face is completely ugly." Jia Fa was a little annoyed by Ding Ming's glare. He could also feel the cold hostility in the other party's eyes. "Big Sister Man, who did it?" Ding Ming turned around and asked. Zhang Lily answered before Yuman could. "Lil, brother Ding, it was Hao Wei who took the money. Hong Mei did it." Jin Xiaoqi and Xiaoning and the others also came along. She was no doubt a smart girl. When she saw that Yuman's cousin dared to ask such a question, she knew that he must have some confidence. In her mind, someone who could order Zhu Fei around couldn't be bad. However, Jia Fa smelled a hint of unease from Ding Ming's cold tone. He controlled his temper and asked, "Student, I see that you are also a student of our Listen Academy. May I ask which department you are from? Who is your teacher?" "I won't tell you." Ding Ming looked at him coldly. He turned around and walked towards the school building without looking back. "But you will know who I am very soon. I promise." Chapter 87. Leaston College was divided into 4 major areas: East, South, West, and North. There was a saying on campus: poor in the West, rich in the East, noble in the South. There was no need to say much about the West District. Most of the people in the East District were powerful and influential. The students in the South District had always been rich, so they lived a more comfortable life. The reason for the saying in the North District was that the students in the North District had the highest passing rate in the biennial exams. Therefore, the resources there were the best in the school. For example, the teaching building of the Fifth Strength Department was a single building. Its appearance was comparable to the International Space Station in space. It was full of heavy metal and modern technology. It was completely incomparable to the shabby classrooms in the West District. As soon as Zhu Fei's figure appeared on the first floor of the teaching building, the passing students made way for him. They did not even dare to enter the elevator and took the stairs instead. However, after the elevator door opened, Zhu Fei did not walk in first. Instead, he nodded and bowed to a short and ordinary-looking boy behind him. "Brother Ding, you go first." This abnormal action made the students around him drop their jaws. Damn, who's that short guy? How can he make the fat pig so respectful? Shoo, keep your voice down. Zhu Fei is definitely a big shot. Brother Ding? Haha, that person is called Brother Ding. Does that mean Brother Ding? F*CKU Brother Ding. He's calling Brother Ding. 4 eyes. Are you talking about yourself? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm deaf. I didn't hear clearly. In the midst of many doubtful discussions, the elevator stopped on the 8th floor. This was the training center of the fish strength department. It was the best training place in the entire school except for the advanced training center. Even the vast martial arts hall in Verdantarn Town could not compare to it. The training center was divided into 3 floors. The outermost floor was the basic strength training hall. It was similar to the command hall in the interstellar fleet. In addition to the necessary training equipment, there were workstations equipped with optical computers. Light screens were erected to record the training data. Hundreds of students were sweating profusely as they practiced. As soon as Zhu Fei entered, Hao Wei greeted him. "Brother Fei." Zhu Fei ignored him with a cold face, but he was no fool. When he saw the person behind Zhu Fei, his expression changed. Ding Meng? Ding Meng remained expressionless as he muttered to himself. "I heard that Lei Bao asked me to come over before midnight." Hao Wei smiled. His smile was playful and meaningful. "Are you here to pay for Aman and Zhuamin's school fees? That's easy. Just transfer the money to me directly. There's no need for Brother Leopard to step in." Ding Meng turned to look at him. "Zhuamin, Jiang Lily, and Akasu paid 1,200 star credits yesterday, right?" "Yes." Hao Wei didn't even raise his head as he continued to select the trade order. "You just need to add another 8,000 star coins." Of course. 800 points would be even better. No one answered him. When he felt that something was wrong and raised his head again, Ding Meng said, "I'll give you a chance now." "What chance?" Hao Wei looked confused. At that moment, Zhu Fei regained his arrogant demeanor as the devil incarnate. He walked forward casually and said, "Shun Shuwei, listen carefully. If you return 2,400 star coins, I won't argue with you about this matter. You could transfer the money directly to me. There's no need to trouble Brother Ding. Listen carefully, 2,400 star coins, not one less. You can exchange it for 240 points. If you lose half a point, I'll send you to the medical office today." At that moment, Hao Wei wondered if he had heard wrongly. "Which side are you on, Zhu Fei? Are you rebelling?" However, he didn't dare to act rashly in front of Zhu Fei. "Brother Fei, I'll respect you as Brother Fei. You should know that this is Brother Leopard's territory." Ding Meng said calmly, "It doesn't matter whose territory this is." At that moment, the entire hall suddenly quieted down. The conversation between Ding Meng and the other two was heard clearly by everyone present. Everyone looked at them in surprise. This was not right. To be precise, such a scene had never appeared in this place before. Hao Wei still didn't dare to believe the other party's words, but his own voice was clearly trembling. Ding Meng, I know you have some skills, but let me warn you in front of Brother Bao, you are nothing. His voice was abruptly interrupted by Ding Meng. "I'll count to 3. 3, 2, 1. Before the word 1 could leave his mouth, Hao Wei turned around and dashed towards the entrance of the inner area. He knew his limits. Regardless of whether it was Ding Meng or Zhu Fei, they were not people he could fight against. Thus, he decided to play it safe and run away first. However, reality proved that even if he wasn't a hero, he still had to suffer a loss. He hadn't even run 10 meters when he experienced the feeling of riding on the clouds. His whole body was light as a feather. No matter how much strength he exerted in his legs, his body couldn't move forward even half an inch. Ding Meng was already behind him. He reached out and grabbed him by the back of his neck. Hao Wei's feet were still kicking in the air. "You have a weak kidney. Brother Ding is usually reasonable. If you don't listen to him, you are courting death. Zhu Fei sneered. If Zhu Fei had been shocked by Ding Meng's amazing strength in the advanced training center, then he really admired Ding Meng now. Originally, he did not want to come on this mission. After all, he had been hanging out with Lei Bao and the others. However, Ding Meng had asked him to come with him. Even if he had 10,000 guts, he would not dare to say that he was not free. Yuman's incident had happened because he had acted on his own initiative to teach Genie Chen a lesson. However, Ding Meng had not mentioned a word along the way, which meant that he did not blame him. Now that he was here, he had taken action personally and did not ask him to do anything. His meaning was obvious. I'm saving you face. You don't have to do anything, lest others say that you are a traitor in the future. Thinking of that, Zhu Fei sighed in his heart. Brother Ding is a person who pays attention to details. Ding Meng grabbed Hao Wei like he was catching a shrimp. I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to refund the money or not? If you continue to be stubborn, then we will have to meet in the medical department. That was a slang in the Christine Academy. Meet in the medical department meant that they would beat you until you were either dead or crippled. Then, you would be sent to the medical department. After the treatment, your origin energy would collapse, and you would be in a state worse than death. No matter how intimidating Lei Bao was, it was not as important as his origin energy. Hao Wei knew that. Retreat. I'll retreat. Hao Wei struggled desperately and shouted, Brother Ding, please be merciful and let me go. Ding Meng threw Hao Wei to the ground with a thud. Zhu Fei had already turned on the screen on his wrist device and walked over. He snorted disdainfully. You have weak kidneys. You are lucky. If I were Brother Ding, you would have been dead a long time ago. How dare you run? Hao Wei had a bitter expression on his face as he transferred 2,400 star coins to Zhu Fei. He now knew Brother Ding's style. I don't care if you collected money or hit people before, but you have to pay me back double. As soon as Zhu Fei received the money, he immediately smiled at Ding Meng. Brother Ding, the amount is correct. At that moment, the other students in the hall were dumbfounded. F***CK, even a fat pig would not flatter Lei Bao like that. Who is this Brother Ding? Ding Meng suddenly spoke again. Where is Genie Chen? Where is he? Hao Wei's face was so bitter that it looked like water could be wrung out of it. Brother Ding, I don't know. Ding Meng lowered his head and glanced at him. Hao Wei was so scared that he almost jumped up. I really don't know. Ding Meng stared at him. But you have a way to find out, right? Hao Wei was stunned for a while. Then he nodded hard. Yes. I will immediately ask someone to inform him to come over. He was still afraid that Ding Meng would not let him go. So he asked carefully, Brother Ding, why are you looking for Genie Chen? Ding Meng said calmly, I want to apologize to him. Hao Wei was dumbstruck. What the hell was going on? He really couldn't figure out what Ding Meng was planning, no matter how hard he cracked his head. Chapter 88. Genie Chen and Jin Xiaoqi appeared at the same time 10 minutes later. Genie Chen was still elegant and looked very happy. Jin Xiaoqi didn't change much. She wore heavy makeup and was arrogant. She didn't take the people in the hall seriously at all. However, after seeing Zhu Fei, Jin Xiaoqi waddled over. Yo, Zhu Fei, you're finally willing to show up. I don't know what kind of enhancement medicine you ate, but you actually attacked my Xiao Chun. Zhu Fei was usually angry about taking the wrong medicine. When he saw Jin Xiaoqi's sarcastic look, he became angry and said, Bitch, open your eyes and see clearly. Brother Ding came in person. Jin Xiaoqi noticed Ding Meng sitting at the workbench and said, Oh, I remember. You are Man's cousin in the countryside. She suddenly found that Hao Wei was also sitting next to Ding Meng, but she didn't find that Hao Wei's legs were trembling. She said, Haha, are you here to pay for Man's tuition? Yes. Ding Meng answered calmly. Good boy. Jin Xiaoqi snapped her fingers and asked, Have you paid the money? This question was directed at Hao Wei. Hao Wei looked at Ding Meng. Ding Meng seemed to be very calm. He looked at Zhu Fei again and found that Zhu Fei was glaring at him fiercely. He could only answer with gritted teeth, Yes. Jin Xiaoqi smiled more happily and said, I have said that Bao's words are still effective in the Western District. Yes, Hao Wei could only bite the bullet and answer. He also said that he would apologize to Yi Chen. Jin Yi Chen suddenly smiled and walked forward. It turns out that you are Man's cousin. We're on the same side. Man and I are actually quite fated. To tell you the truth, I saw her buying medicine in the shopping store last month. His words were suddenly interrupted by Ding Meng coldly. Lei Bao wants me to apologize to you formally. How formally? That's simple. Jin Xiaoqi raised her chin and said proudly, from today on, my Xiaochun should be your elder brother. In the future, if he asks you to do something, you have to do it. If he asks you to run errands, you have to run errands. Look at your rustic appearance. Alas, people from the countryside are all like this. But Xiaoman is not bad. She and Xiaochun are a good match. I don't need to teach you how to do this, right? Ding Meng said, are you done? Is there anything else? Jin Xiaoqi finally realized that something was wrong. Ding Meng was surprisingly calm, so calm that it even made people feel a little scared. Ding Meng slowly stood up from the chair and stared at Jin Yi Chen. It's time to hit the road. On the road, Jin Yi Chen was also at a loss. Where are we going? Ding Meng said coldly, go to the medical office. As soon as his voice fell, Jin Yi Chen suddenly flew upside down. When he was flying halfway, a chair whizzed through the air and hit him, which directly deformed it. Jin Yi Chen lay motionless on the ground after falling down. Obviously, he'd been knocked unconscious, but blood was gurgling out of his mouth. He looked like a living dead. How did Ding Meng do it? Except for Zhu Fei, no one present could figure out. Jin Xiaoqi was scared out of her wits by this sudden change. She screamed and rushed over. Xiaochun, Xiaochun, don't scare me. Wake up, wake up. Someone come quickly. She cried and wailed, but Hao Wei was dumbfounded. He knew that Ding Meng was powerful, but he did not know how powerful Ding Meng was. Now he finally saw that Ding Meng had been sitting on a steel-framed chair. Such a steel chair could actually deform a person when it was hit. It was not until now that he realized that Ding Meng had really shown mercy to him that day in the classroom in Mingyu District. When he thought of how he had mocked Ding Meng, cold sweat dripped down Hao Wei's forehead. How stupid was I to provoke someone like Ding Meng? I was really stupid. He secretly rejoiced, but Ding Meng stared at him again. Did you see it? I saw it, Brother Ding. Hao Wei's head almost shrank into his collar. Ding Meng said, do you want to be like him? No, I don't want to be like him at all. Hao Wei shook his head like a rattle drum. Okay, Ding Meng nodded. I'll give you a chance now. Hao Wei was afraid when he heard that. What chance? Brother Ding. Ding Meng pointed at Jin Xiaoqi, who was in the distance. Show me what you're capable of and beat that woman up. Then I'll let you go. No matter what you do in the future, I won't care. When he heard that, Zhu Fei, who was at the side, was really impressed. He was considered an expert at torturing people, but compared to Brother Ding, he was simply a weakling. Jin Xiaoqi and Jin Yi Chen used Lei Bao's reputation to humiliate you, man. Right? Well, now I'll let Lei Bao's men teach you a lesson. I'll let you beat up your own people. Zhu Fei secretly gave Ding Meng a thumbs up. Brother Ding, you're so smart. If Hao Wei had been afraid of the refund, then Ding Meng's request made Hao Wei feel real fear. He did not know what would happen if Ding Meng wanted to deal with him. However, if he really beat up Jin Xiaoqi, then he could no longer stay in the North District's boxing faculty. Lei Bao would definitely cripple him after that. Seeing his hesitation, Ding Meng did not say anything. Instead, Zhu Fei spoke first. Wei Wei, this is a way for you to live. Don't act like a F***king pig. If you really want Brother Ding to cripple you, just say the word. Hao Wei thought for a moment, then clenched his fists and slowly walked toward Jin Xiaoqi. The reason why he made up his mind was very simple. Even an unreasonable person like Zhu Fei had sided with Ding Meng. If Hao Wei did not know how to make this choice, then he would really be a pig. When she saw that Hao Wei was really walking over, Jin Xiaoqi's pupils began to shrink. Hao Wei, are you F***king crazy? Hao Wei was not crazy. She was the one who was crazy because Hao Wei had punched her in the face and deformed her face. Hao Wei's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Sister Qi, I'm sorry. I was forced. Zhu Fei was immediately dissatisfied. What do you mean by forced? This is voluntary. It's just a spar between classmates. Brother Ding, am I right? Ding Ming did not answer. This was the effect he wanted. He wanted to make the siblings not dare to have any fantasies about man. Hao Wei's punch made Jin Xiaoqi lie on the ground with her hands covering her face. She was in so much pain that she kicked and screamed. Hao Wei immediately turned his head and looked at Ding Ming. Ding Ming looked thoughtful. That day in the classroom in Mingyu District, your performance was not so bad. Hao Wei gritted his teeth again, raised his fist, and punched her a few more times. Jin Xiaoqi could not make a sound at all. She lay on the ground like mud, and her face had completely turned into a pancake. Hao Wei's teeth were chattering. Is that enough? Brother Ding. Ding Ming did not even bother to look at him. He did not speak, but the expression on his face was so cold that it could freeze. Hao Wei gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. He raised his fist and punched Jin Xiaoqi all over her body. He did not know how long he had been punching her, but Jin Xiaoqi could no longer be seen. She fell to the ground like a pile of rotten meat. Hao Wei turned his head to look at Ding Ming again. This time, he did not ask any questions because he was tired of punching her. Ding Ming was expressionless. You can leave now. In fact, it was difficult for him to leave even if he wanted to, because a sharp and thin voice came from the door. Hao Wei, you've guts. You even dare to hit your sister-in-law. You've really grown up. When Zhu Fei saw it, he immediately lowered his head to Ding Ming and whispered, Brother Ding, it's Hong Mei. There was no need for him to remind him. Ding Ming had already sensed the fluctuation of origin energy. It was indeed much stronger than that of an ordinary origin ability user. Chapter 89. Little Red was still dressed in black leather, and she was also wearing a pair of metal gloves. However, her expression was not as relaxed as it had been the day before. Her gaze was locked onto Ding Ming. You're you man's cousin? Ding Ming finally revealed a cold smile. You're wrong. I'm not. Oh. Little Red stared at him with interest. Then who are you? Ding Ming said, I'm Zhu Min's cousin. He mentioned Zhu Min because he wanted to remind her that she was the one who had crippled Zhu Min. However, Little Red did not seem to care. So what? Ding Ming said, it's very simple. If you can cripple her, then I will naturally cripple you as well. Huh. Little Red raised her head and laughed coldly. Anyone could talk big. I don't need to talk big. Ding Ming looked at her calmly. In your eyes, she's trash, but in my eyes, you're also trash. Everyone around them sucked in a sharp breath. Little Red was a top student who had the potential to become an origin warrior. Ding Ming actually called her trash. They did not know how strong this Ding Ming really was. For a moment, everyone was very curious, but they were not willing to leave. As such, the crowd all retreated a dozen or so meters. Little Red also took in a deep breath, forcefully suppressing the anger that was rising in her heart. Previously, she had not taken Yuman's people seriously, but when she walked in, she realized that this Ding Ming in front of her was actually able to make Zhu Fei and Hao Wei obey him. She immediately realized that this person was not simple. But so what? She was ranked 19th in the Listen Academy. As for the 18 people ranked above her, not only did they not have the name Ding Ming, they did not even have anyone with the surname Ding. She did not believe that this person was very powerful. Interesting. Little Red laughed. I also admire you. No one has ever dared to come here and cause trouble. You're the first. Ding Ming also smiled. I've never dealt with women. You're the first one, but... He paused for a moment and continued. You can't be considered a real woman because you've done too much plastic surgery on your face. You're completely a freak that's neither male nor female. I don't see you as a human at all. Ding Ming had obviously done his homework in advance. With just a few words, he had poked at the other party's sore spot. Red Sister gritted her teeth and said, If I don't make you go to the medical office today, I'll let you down. Ding Ming glanced at the Jean siblings on the ground and said with a smile, Just in time. The three of you can go together. Hong Mei no longer spoke any nonsense. She urged her origin ability and rushed forward like a ghost, her fists punching out like raindrops. Pa, 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 a series of rapid sounds rang out in the hall. These were the sounds of fists and palms colliding. Just hearing these sounds caused the scalps of the surrounding students to go numb. It was as concentrated as firecrackers going off. As for the two's movements, practically no one in the hall could see them clearly. Only Zhu Fei's eyes were as bright as snow. Little Red's enchanting footwork and fast-paced attacks seemed to give her the upper hand, but in reality, Ding Ming hadn't moved much at all. He was relying on his bare hands to receive her attacks. Most importantly, he was able to receive every single one of her punches. For a moment, Zhu Fei rejoiced. That day at the Advanced Training Center, it was fortunate that he had been scoring points on the boxing machine and not directly attacking people. If he had really hit Ding Ming, he didn't know whether or not Ding Ming would have been hurt, but if Ding Ming had cut him, he was certain that one of his hands would have been gone. At this moment, the two's movements were getting faster and faster. The shockwaves from the exchange of fists and palms had already forced the crowd back another 5 or 6 meters. The fluctuations of origin ability caused the temperature in the hall to suddenly rise. Many people felt a shocking heat on their faces, as if there was a ball of fire roasting them. This was Ding Ming's origin ability gradually circulating, and Hong Mei clearly felt it as well. Every single punch she sent out was blocked by a sturdy target, just like when she was training. No matter how she changed her position or posture, the target would always be able to stop right in front of her, obstructing her momentum. Moreover, this target would even reflect a wave of scorching energy back at her, causing her to feel extremely anxious. Hong Mei's punches became faster and faster, and she also became more and more anxious. In reality, her heart was constantly sinking. After throwing at least 40 or 50 punches, she couldn't even touch Ding Ming's clothes. She was now experiencing what Zhu Min had felt the day before: anger, anxiety, and panic all mixed together, forming an indescribable feeling. With a whoosh, Hong Mei's figure drew an extremely large arc in the hall, spinning as she retreated 10 meters away. She stared coldly at Ding Ming, the expression on her face extremely serious. When Zhu Fei saw her like this, he was instantly amused. "Plastic surgery, Mei. Why aren't you so arrogant today? Are you scared?" "Ha! Shut up!" Hong Mei shouted loudly as she charged forward again. Unlike before, this time, even Zhu Fei was unable to see her movements clearly. It was as if Red's sister's legs and hands had disappeared, and the image of her body had also become blurry. Coupled with that snake-like face of hers, the momentum she gave off was just like a ghost from hell moving out. Her battle formation was extremely terrifying. Of course, Ding Ming could see through all of her tricks. He had already seen through his telekinesis vision. Hong Mei's ankles and wrists had gathered a large amount of pure, white origin energy. Obviously, her light element energy had been completely activated, causing her speed to increase. However, she had only moved halfway when she suddenly disappeared into thin air. Before the students in the hall could react to what had happened, Hong Mei's figure once again appeared with a whoosh. She had actually appeared behind Ding Ming. This was a necessary martial technique for light element origin ability users, transient step. It allowed one to instantly teleport near the target and attack the enemy's weak points with lightning speed. Strictly speaking, this was a martial technique that only light element origin ability users could cultivate. Hong Mei already possessed the strength of an origin ability user. However, it was as if Ding Ming's back had grown eyes. Hong Mei's shining gloves were just about to strike the back of his head. Unexpectedly, Ding Ming took a slight step and turned his body sideways, causing Hong Mei to rush back to her original position. However, no matter where she flashed, Ding Ming was always able to calmly avoid her attacks, as if he had already known where she was going to attack. "What's going on?" Hong Mei finally realized that something was wrong. What else could be going on? Telekinesis vision could lock onto you from all 360 degrees without any blind spots. It would be strange if you could hit him. At present, Ding Ming had yet to truly make a move, so Hong Mei was not sure how effective his attacks would be. However, there was one thing that she was very clear about, and that was that if this continued, she would be at a great disadvantage. She was still able to calculate this. She was constantly expending energy, while her opponent was just waiting for her to exhaust herself. In the end, even if it was a competition of physical strength, he would still be able to kill her. No, she had to get rid of this brat in one go. Otherwise, there would be no end to the trouble in the future. With this thought in mind, Hong Mei no longer used Transient Step. Instead, she pushed the 4 origin points in her body to their limits. Amidst the cries of astonishment in the hall, 4 identical Hong Mei mirror images appeared at the same time, forming a square with Ding Meng in the center. Following this was a violent gust of wind, creating an origin energy field that completely locked Ding Meng in. At this moment, Little Rascal also exclaimed in surprise, "Hey, she's not bad." She actually managed to cultivate 4 mirror images. Chapter 90. Afterimage was also one of the hallmarks of the Lightspeed system. It was an afterimage created by an origin ability user using their own pure energy. To put it bluntly, it was a fake body. However, a Lightspeed user could use their speed advantage to quickly switch between the fake bodies. If you hit a fake body, then the real body would definitely attack you. If you did not attack, then the real body would use one of the fake bodies to attack you from an angle you would not expect. The higher the level of afterimage, the more fake bodies one could create. The stronger a Lightspeed user was, the faster their attack speed would be. It could be as fast as a few punches per second, 10 punches per second, or even dozens of punches per second. At that level, the real body's attack would be like all the fake bodies attacking at the same time, making it very difficult to guard against. After a period of hard work in the Advanced Training Center, Ding Meng also understood the principle of this martial art technique. He also understood that the truly powerful part of afterimage was actually the wind generated by the flow of origin energy between each afterimage. This was because it would create a great disturbance to a person's vision. For example, right now, the violent wind had swept in all the tables and chairs around him and was spinning wildly around him, forming a small, chaotic space. The outside world could not see what was happening inside, and the inside world could not see what was happening outside. Fortunately, Zhu Fei and the others could not see. If they could, they would probably be scared to death because at this moment, Ding Meng actually closed his eyes. Little Red's brain short-circuited. What was going on? In Teacher Jia Fei's lessons, afterimage was considered a high-end martial art technique for origin ability users. However, it was not invincible. There were many martial arts techniques that could restrain its effects, but no matter which one it was, there was no way to close one's eyes like this. The force field was still spinning, and the 4 afterimages were still changing into different postures. Ding Meng was not moved at all. He stood in place with his eyes closed and did not move at all. This time, it was Little Red's turn to hesitate. Ding Meng was full of openings from head to toe, but she did not know how to attack. This situation was just like the battle between Leopard and Ding Meng. At first glance, there were no openings on his body, but when you really wanted to attack, you would feel that there were no openings on his body. This was because you would never be able to guess what his next move was. If you attacked carelessly and missed, the consequences would be unimaginable. At the end of the day, this was actual combat experience. Most of the time, the academy was like a greenhouse, nurturing only flowers. Although it was nourished by sunshine and rain, it did not have the experience and lessons of life and death battles. However, Ding Meng's experience was gained from struggling on the edge of death. After running afterimage for more than a minute, Ding Meng did not show any signs of opening his eyes. At this moment, Hong Mei couldn't hold it in any longer. She finally understood Ding Meng's sinister intentions. Ding Meng didn't intend to make a move at all because she would be the one to suffer if this continued. Releasing energy from 4 different points at the same time would consume too much energy. The situation had forced her to make a move even if she didn't want to. But where should he attack from? This was another difficult multiple-choice question. After a brief moment of hesitation, Hong Mei finally made up her mind. At this moment, the force field suddenly disappeared, and all of the wind energy gathered on her fist. Her shiny gloves were like a war hammer in a storm as they whizzed towards Ding Meng's head. Her choice was undoubtedly correct. The previous exchange had already proven that Ding Meng did not care about her transient steps at all. Thus, instead of playing some fancy tricks, she might as well face him head-on and give him a thunderous blow. This punch could not be called a punch at all. The punch was wrapped in an invisible wave of energy that swept through the entire central arena. At the same time, it also swept up the barbells, elastic machines, and punching machines in the surroundings. It was like a storm was sweeping towards Ding Meng. At this moment, the surrounding crowd could clearly see the exchange between the two of them. Originally, Zhu Fei was still mocking Little Red for being childish. But now, he was holding his breath as he couldn't help but worry for Ding Meng. He really couldn't think of any way Ding Meng could dodge this attack. Ding Meng didn't even try to dodge. He stood in place and took her punch head-on. The storm looked fierce, but when it really enveloped Ding Meng, it was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. It quickly scattered and disappeared without a trace. With a muffled bang, Hong Mei's fist finally landed on Ding Meng's forehead. At this moment, Ding Meng was supposed to fly into the air, then fall to the ground with a bloody nose. Finally, he would kneel and beg for mercy. Unfortunately, the scene that Little Red had imagined did not happen. Ding Meng was standing in the same spot as if nothing had happened to him. He slowly opened his eyes and stared at her before coldly saying, "I've said it just now. In my eyes, you're trash." He was indeed confident. The Diamond Star technique had created 4 complete origin points, and all of them were used to strengthen his resistance. Even a normal origin energy warrior with a body tempering origin energy would not have a body as strong as his. Hong Mei's punch was enough to take down a fierce person like Zhu Fei, but in front of Ding Meng, it was still not enough. Only now did she realize where she had gone wrong. Ding Meng actually couldn't do anything to her because her movement technique was definitely faster than his. Ding Meng wanted to bait her into attacking him with all her strength. This way, Ding Meng would have a chance to counterattack. Unfortunately, Little Red realized it too late. With a swish, Ding Meng grabbed her wrist and twisted it forcefully. With a plop, Hong Mei knelt on the ground, the expression on her face contorting. Ding Meng's palm was like an alloy iron hoop, holding her wrist tightly. The more she struggled, the more pain she felt. Her wrist felt like it was being broken. Another bang rang out. This time, it was Ding Meng's kick that sent Hong Mei's body flying toward the door. Ding Meng landed on the ground and stomped on the ground. A shiny barbell suddenly bounced up. Ding Meng then swept his leg, sending the barbell flying like a missile. The tip of the barbell accurately hit Hong Mei's forehead. Everyone could clearly see that Hong Mei, who was in midair, spat out a large amount of blood. Hong Mei was indeed quite capable. Under such circumstances, she somersaulted in the air and used the fierce tiger landing stance to half kneel on the ground. She supported herself with one hand and barely managed to stabilize herself. However, Ding Meng's figure suddenly became blurry. Hong Mei knew that her opponent had moved, but she couldn't see him clearly because Ding Meng was already in front of her. He used his signature karate reverse chop. Gotcha! Hong Mei fell heavily to the ground and let out a blood-curdling scream that made everyone's hair stand on end. Her ankle had been cut off, and the sole of her foot was like a ball of soft, rotten meat hanging from her calf. She couldn't stand up at all. Many girls in the hall screamed, and countless people ran out of the door. Zhu Fei also felt a chill in his heart when he saw this. Brother Ding's attack was really fast, direct, and cold. Most of the basic cultivation techniques of light ability, users started from the 4 limbs. Ding Meng's attack was also intended to cripple Hong Mei. Hong Mei curled up on the ground and wriggled. Tears flowed out of her eyes because she finally felt fear. Not only was her opponent's resistance strong, but his movement technique and strength were also far above hers. When faced with such an opponent, she could only beg him to go easy on her. Wait. Hong Mei hurriedly waved her hands and begged for mercy. She was almost crying. You are an origin energy warrior, and I am just an origin energy user. This is not fair. Ding Ming lowered his head and looked at her coldly, as if he was looking at a reptile that was struggling on its deathbed. When you crippled Zhuo Min yesterday, did you mention the word fair? When she heard this, Hong Mei felt her entire body turn cold. She was in complete despair. Ding Ming didn't care about her feelings at all. He grabbed her other leg and lifted her up. Brother Ding, Brother Ding. Only then did Zhu Fei feel terrified. He hurriedly went forward to persuade him. She's already crippled. You see. Let's just cough. That's enough. Ding Ming turned his head and glanced at him coldly. Zhu Fei immediately felt a chill run down his spine. Although Ding Ming was usually calm and indifferent, when it came to showing off his power, his eyes were even colder than the edge of a blade. Zhu Fei's legs trembled a little, and he didn't dare to say another word. At that moment, a dignified voice suddenly came from outside the door. Stop! Chapter 91. Ding Ming had not made a move all this time because he sensed two waves of origin ability fluctuating outside the door. They were not thread-like fluctuations, but rather turbulent fluctuations. One of them was even stronger than Little Red's origin ability, while the other was a powerful fluctuation that he had never seen before. When he turned around again, he saw Jia Fa and Lei Bao walking in with cold expressions. If it were not for a student who had tipped them off in advance, Jia Fa and Lei Bao would not have believed that Ding Ming could deal with Little Red. The reason was simple. Zhu Fei was not much weaker than Little Red, and the two of them were evenly matched in terms of strength. Since Ding Ming could make Zhu Fei bow his head respectfully, it was very likely that Little Red would not be able to deal with Ding Ming. Fortunately, he had arrived in time. Otherwise, Little Red would have been doomed. However, when he walked in, he saw that one of Little Red's legs had been crippled, and Ding Ming was holding Little Red's other leg as if he was crushing a chicken. It seemed like he was going to cripple her completely. Jia Fa's anger was rising to his head, and he could not help but scold angrily. What are you doing? You're rebelling. Do you know where you are? Stop what you're doing. Put him down. Ding Ming could not be bothered with Jia Fa. He calmed down again and looked at Lei Bao. I just want to ask you one question. Lei Bao was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out. His girlfriend had been beaten up by Hao Wei, Jeannie Chen had been crippled by Ding Ming, and now Little Red was in such a state. He could no longer stay in the North District's boxing faculty. He had lost all his face. However, Little Red was now in Ding Ming's hands. No matter how angry he was, he could only suppress his anger. Ask away. Ding Ming said, when you guys crippled Zhuo Min yesterday, my sister and the others shouted for you to stop. Did you guys stop? Lei Bao clenched his teeth and said, Ding Ming, I'll give you a lot of face. Let Hong Mei go now, and we can discuss everything. As long as you let her go, I'll treat this as if it never happened. Ding Ming interrupted him impatiently. I'm asking you, have you stopped? Just answer yes or no. Jia Fa was enraged. Bastard, you're simply lawless. Do you still look like a student? Ding Ming also looked at him and sneered disdainfully. I'll use your logic. The students you teach are chickens. Don't blame other students for your own incompetence. Many people have this problem. They don't want to find fault with themselves. Jia Fa was so angry that he was speechless. He had said those words to Su Weiman yesterday, and now Ding Ming had returned them to him. Retribution was only a day away. Lei Bao, on the other hand, calmed down. What will it take for you to let Hong Mei go? Ding Ming turned his head, too lazy to even look at the two of them. My patience is limited. I'll ask you one last time. Yes or no? Lei Bao gritted his teeth and said, no, but we didn't think that Zhuo Min. His only response was a crack. Ding Ming had mercilessly cut off Hong Mei's ankle and tossed her to the ground. His principles were clear. Any explanation was just an excuse. He only wanted results. Since Hong Mei had crippled Zhuo Min, then he would cripple Hong Mei as well. That was true fairness. As for origin energy users fighting perception users and origin energy users fighting origin energy users, there was no such thing as fairness. The world had always been like this. The strong would survive, while the weak would never be able to make a comeback. Now that it was their turn to be strong, they could only wait to be abused. Upon seeing Ding Meng's callous attitude, Lei Bao flew into a rage. He tore apart the training clothes he was wearing. Brat, don't even think about walking out of this classroom today. His origin energy began to circulate, and Ding Meng immediately felt the air around her slightly exploding. The surface of her skin also felt a slight numbness. Little Rascal reminded him, Ding Meng, he's an electromagnetic type origin energy user. Be careful, this guy's origin energy fluctuations are very strong. They aren't any weaker than Hong Mei's. Ding Meng was always very calm whenever he faced a strong opponent. He stared at Lei Bao. If you have the ability to kill me, then I have nothing to say. But if I cripple you today, you'd better not complain. His calm tone caused Lei Bao to become even more vigilant. Yes, how could someone who could cripple Hong Mei not be a ruthless character? However, just as the two sides were about to draw their swords, a very calm voice sounded out. You can both stop now. This is a training room, not a place for you to settle personal grudges. It was obviously a woman's voice. Not only was it gentle and elegant, but it also felt very familiar. Little Rascal suddenly jumped around in Ding Meng's field of vision and cheered. Wow, so it's a pumpkin butt. Ding Meng, your chance has come again. Do you want to try it? The newcomer was also wearing training clothes, with the Leasting Academy's rainbow emblem on her chest. However, she had curly brown hair and a delicate face. She was Ding Meng's sparring partner at the Azure Pond Dojo, Chu Xiaoqing. Chu Xiaoqing didn't come alone. Behind her was a middle-aged woman with an unassuming appearance. It was her driver, Big Sister Zhong. Chu Xiaoqing herself might have been intimidating, but when Big Sister Zhong came in, even Ding Meng stopped circulating his origin energy. This was because at this moment, Big Sister Zhong's body erupted with an indescribable, monstrous wave. This wave of energy was like a flood pouring down from the top of a mountain. In the blink of an eye, it covered and submerged every corner of the hall. Ding Meng and Lei Bao's origin energy was as insignificant as a floating boat in this flood. There was no possibility of resisting at all. This kind of pressure was simply suffocating. This was the first time Ding Meng had seen someone who could cultivate origin energy to this extent. He didn't even know what level she was at. The most important thing was that as soon as Ding Meng's Lei Bao stopped circulating his origin energy, the overwhelming pressure immediately disappeared without a trace. When he looked up again, Big Sister Zhong was still standing behind Chu Xiaoqing. She still looked like an ordinary middle-aged woman. She had a polite smile on her face and even nodded slightly at Ding Meng's group to show her friendliness. It was impossible to tell that this was the expert who had just released the amazing energy. Alas, Ding Meng secretly sighed. He was an expert. Looking at her ability to retract and release her origin energy, it seemed that he still had a long way to go in his cultivation. Jia Fa forced a smile. So it's Student Chu. I haven't seen you in a long time. Chu Xiaoqing nodded and replied rather mechanically. Hello, Teacher Jia Fa. Thank you for your usual guidance. However, please don't spar in the training room. There are still many empty virtual cabins in the training center. Of course. Jia Fa was very respectful and cooperative. His face was full of smiles. It seemed that he was quite afraid of Chu Xiaoqing. Lei Bao had the same expression. He kept nodding and bowing, not even looking at Ding Meng. At this time, Chu Xiaoqing turned to Ding Meng with a surprised expression on her face. Ding Meng, so you're a student of our school. Ding Meng said, Hello, Miss Chu. How come I've never seen you in school before? Chu Xiaoqing walked over. Ding Meng said, I just entered the school a few days ago. Chu Xiaoqing turned her head and looked into the distance again. Lei Bao was carrying Sister Hong and Jin Xiaoqi on his shoulders. As for Zhu Fei, he had already slipped away and disappeared. Chu Xiaoqing's expression was thoughtful. Dingming, you've improved so fast in less than a month. How did you do it? Of course, Dingming couldn't tell her the heaven-defying cultivation method without the induction cabin. He also stared at Chu Xiaoqing. Miss Chu, congratulations. Chu Xiaoqing laughed. What are you congratulating me for? Dingming said, if I'm not wrong, you've already broken through and become an origin energy warrior. He came to this conclusion because he had a better understanding of the origin energy index. Compared to Sister Hong's aura, Chu Xiaoqing's aura was undoubtedly stronger. It was obvious that Chu Xiaoqing's strength had greatly increased during this period of time. Chu Xiaoqing sighed. To be honest, when I saw you again, I really wanted to compete with you again. However, I don't think there's any need for that now. I just realized that you're much stronger than me. Dingming said, Miss Chu, you're being too modest. Chu Xiaoqing said seriously, I'm not being modest. Hong Mei isn't weak. It's impossible for me to cripple her legs. Dingming remained silent. Chu Xiaoqing changed her tone. Dingming, I'm very happy to see you again today. Do you have time? Can you do me the honor of having a meal together? Chapter 92. With Dingming's personality, it was normally very difficult for him to waste time on food. However, Chu Xiaoqing had treated him quite well in the dojo. Without the tip, he would not have been able to buy so many nutrient solutions. It was also because of that batch of nutrient solutions that he had enough supplies to successfully construct the fourth node. Thus, it was not easy for him to reject her. However, this simple meal that Chu Xiaoqing spoke of was not a simple meal in Dingming's eyes. It was a true feast in the truest sense. Chu Xiaoqing had booked dinner at a restaurant called Lakeside Flower Garden, 2 kilometers away from Leaston Academy. This was the most prosperous district of Chiozei City, and the restaurant was one of the most luxurious restaurants in the city. He sat down by the window and looked out. The scenery of the mountains and rivers in the east was panoramic, while the lights of the houses in the west gave him a different feeling. The decorations here were rich and grand, and the environment was quiet in the midst of chaos. It was indeed a good place to invite people to dinner. Accompanying Dingming was Yuman. Chu Xiaoqing was obviously well informed. She had already found out what had happened in the training room during the day, so she invited Yuman to dinner. For Yuman, this was something that she did not even dare to imagine before. Chu Xiaoqing was not considered a celebrity in Leaston Academy, but many people knew that the Chu family was one of the investors of the academy. It was said that they held a large proportion of the investment and had a great say in the school's board of directors. This was also the reason why Lei Bao respected her so much. From another perspective, Leaston Academy belonged to the Chu family. Chu Xiaoqing was the pride of the Chu family. Such a person would not normally walk together with a girl from a poor family like Yuman. Of course, this was all because of Dingming. All along, Yuman's impression of Dingming had stopped at the concept of a galactic refugee. However, everything was turned upside down today. Not long after Dingming went to the Northern District, Zhu Fei came again and transferred a huge sum of 2,400 star coins to Zhumin. Following that, the news of Hong Mei being crippled spread like wildfire within the school. It was reported that after Hong Mei was rescued, more than half of her origin ability had dissipated. Although her origin ability was still there, it was quite difficult for her to operate it. She could be considered a cripple. Dingming's name was still unknown to everyone. The students in the school only knew one thing. It turned out that there was a classical swordsmanship department in the Western District, and this department had produced a fierce male student who had actually taken care of that arrogant and despotic Little Red from the boxing department in the Northern District. The person who was the angriest about Little Red being crippled was Jia Fa. Just like Su Weimin, Jia Fa would naturally demand an explanation. The person he looked for was not Zhao Yu, but the school's higher-ups. However, the school didn't favor anyone this time. Their explanation to Jiafa adhered to the Norse Empire's philosophy. Don't blame others if your skills aren't as good as others. If everyone was like you, Would the soldiers on the front lines still have to ask the Frogman Kingdom for an explanation when they lose? You'd better go back and reflect on yourself. However, Hong Mei was a top student with a high chance of passing this year's exam. Her being crippled all of a sudden made the school a little angry. It was impossible to expel Ding Meng. Look at how teacher Zhao Yu was walking around the school now. It was obvious that Ding Meng had done him proud. Although Ding Meng had never displayed any classical swordsmanship, Ding Meng was obviously a talent. He had to be a student of the Leaston Academy. Therefore, the school said that they must punish Ding Meng. The specific punishment was to let Ding Meng go back to his hometown for a while before returning to school. This result made Jia Fa so angry that he vomited blood, but Ding Meng was not satisfied. What about Zhuo Min? Should Zhuo Min be crippled? Shouldn't Lei Bao and his gang be punished? Brother Ding. Zhu Fei magically appeared at this time. He didn't have the right to eat at the same table as Miss Chu, so he could only stand behind Ding Meng obediently. The money has been transferred to Zhuo Min. Not a single cent less. It's 2,400 star coins. It was fine if he didn't mention it, but the moment he mentioned money, Ding Meng got a little angry. I remember yesterday, didn't Lei Bao want Sister Man to pay 4,000 star coins as tuition fee? This, of course, Zhu Fei was aware of these details. However, he couldn't help but feel a sense of sympathy for Little Red after being tortured to such an extent. Ding Meng might be impressive now, but if Ding Meng were to be killed by his enemy in the future, what would Zhu Fei, do? The first person who wouldn't let him go was Lei Bao. Ding Meng didn't care what he thought and always followed his principles. Go and tell Lei Bao that I said it. Within 3 days, ask him to prepare 8,000 star coins as tuition fees for Zhuo Min. I don't care if he has the money or not. If he can't pay in 3 days, I'll go and find him personally. By then, it won't be just 8,000 star coins. I'll continue to double it. Yes, 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 I'll go now. Zhu Fei turned and ran. If Ding Meng made any more strange requests, he would be in a difficult position as an errand boy. At this time, Chu Xiaoqing, who was sitting across the table, said, Ding Meng, if Sister Man doesn't have a good place to go in the future, she can consider working at Anvil Corporation. What do you think? Ding Meng didn't say anything, but Yu Man was surprised and happy. She quickly got up and bowed to thank Chu Xiaoqing. Thank you so much, Miss Chu. Chu Xiaoqing smiled and waved her hand. Sister Man, you're too polite. There's no need to thank me. There were some problems with the school's management, and this time it's been solved. Ding Meng also knew that the school didn't pursue the matter because of Chu Xiaoqing, but seeing how Chu Xiaoqing was taking extra care of Zhuo Min, he knew that she definitely wasn't just treating him to a meal. Miss Chu, do you want me to be your sparring partner again? Ding Meng took the initiative to ask. That's not it. It's really too much for you to be a sparring partner. Chu Xiaoqing replied with a smile. Chu Xiaoqing replied with a smile. Ding Meng, if nothing unexpected happens, you should also be participating in the Academy's examination, right? By now, Ding Meng was no stranger to the examination. The so-called examination was a large-scale comprehensive test for origin energy practitioners, so it was called the examination in short. It wasn't only held by the Leaston Academy, but also by all the middle schools in the Norse Empire. The purpose was naturally to provide the empire with talents. In reality, the examination itself didn't have any obstacles. The hard data were all there. If you met it, you'd naturally pass the test. If you didn't, then you'd have to go back and continue cultivating, waiting for the next examination. The Norse Empire's examination was held once a year. The Leaston Academy was located on a planet at the edge of the empire. It was poor in terms of resources and conditions, so there weren't many talents. Thus, the Academy held the examination once every 2 years. For people like Chu Xiaoqing, Lei Bao, and Sister Red, it wasn't difficult to pass the examination. The real difficulty was the choice after that. Enlisting in the army, choosing a talent show, studying, joining a sect, joining a faction, or continuing to cultivate. In short, there were many choices. Of course, whether or not the Empire's nobles would take a liking to them was not up to them. Chu Xiaoqing suddenly stopped smiling, and her expression became serious. Ding Ming, I really want to know. If you pass the examination, how will you think about your future? Ding Ming also looked serious. His gaze fell outside the window, as if he was staring into the distance. His expression was a little dazed. Chu Xiaoqing saw that he was silent, so she took the initiative to reveal her cards. Ding Ming, let's put it this way. My goal is to go to the fertile chalk star system. Ding Ming didn't answer, but Yuman was so shocked that she almost stood up. Fertile chalk star system? That's the war zone between the Norse Empire and the Frogman Kingdom. Miss Chu, you want to go to the front lines? Yes. Chu Xiaoqing nodded seriously. My goal is to go to the front lines. Chapter 93. The Pan-God system where the Frogman Kingdom was located was 5 light years away from the Norse Empire, which wasn't too far away. The Pan-God system was originally empty. Many years ago, an alien civilization called the Frogman race arrived and began to reproduce there. At first, the two races lived in harmony, but the Frogman race expanded too quickly, and the fertile chalk system slowly came into the sights of the two races. The system wasn't suitable for living, but many of the planets contained a considerable amount of precious resources. Thus, the fleets of the two sides fought fiercely in order to snatch the resources. At that time, the Norse Empire was under attack from 3 sides. The Devourer World and the Holy Grail Federation threatened the Empire's territory from the flanks and rear respectively. The Devourer World was still fine. After all, the monsters there didn't have much technology, and they didn't have many strong fighters. Most of the time, they used guerrilla warfare, sneak attacks, teleportation, harassment, and other dirty tricks. The Empire's fleets could still deal with them. However, the threat of the Federation couldn't be underestimated. The Federation's territory was just as large, and they were rich in resources. They had as many strong fighters as cows. The Norse Empire basically couldn't take advantage of them. For the same reason, the Federation and the Empire had been fighting for many years, and they were exhausted. The leaders of the two countries reached a consensus. They were all humans, but they were from different countries. What was the point of letting the scum of the other races take advantage of them, while their own people were exhausted? Thus, the Norse Empire and the Holy Grail Federation quickly reached a ceasefire agreement. After the Federation had a chance to catch their breath, they immediately targeted the Devourer World, and the Devourer World's savagery quickly decreased. The Empire, on the other hand, had no more trouble and focused on snatching resources from the Frogman Kingdom. Thus, the fertile chalk system gradually became the front line of the Empire's battlefield, and it still was today. However, now that the two sides were in a long-term war, there was no way a large-scale battle would occur. Would I show you my trump card because I've eaten too much? In that case, there would be countless small skirmishes. However, both sides would retreat as soon as they exchanged fire. Before either side knew what the other side's true strength was, or before they had absolute confidence, everyone would make a feint. No one dared to penetrate deep into the enemy's territory alone or rashly attack. Even so, the so-called small conflicts on the front lines were still like purgatory to the citizens of the Imperium. Many people were sent into the front lines, but very little gold was produced. Death was one of the factors, but more importantly, once one entered the front lines, it was highly likely that one would spend their entire life there. Origin ability users were mostly youngsters. How many youngsters didn't want to enjoy life in this world? That was why the elementary scholar selection was so popular. With Chu Xiaoqing's status and family background, it was not hard to understand why Yuman was so shocked when she chose to go to the front line after becoming a warrior. Chu Xiaoqing did not have to suffer like this at all, and it was still a question whether she could come back. Teacher Zhao Yu had returned from the front lines, but he had not received any respect after returning. Instead, he had been mocked and ridiculed. Ding Ming also felt that Chu Xiaoqing's actions were somewhat inconceivable. Fortunately, Sister Zhong, who was behind Chu Xiaoqing, was already explaining, "Our Chu clan has been contributing to the Imperium for many years, especially in the development and supply of amplification products. It's just that we don't have any outstanding origin energy warriors. So when Xiaoqing decided to go to the front lines, the entire Chu clan supports her. These words were very tactful. She did not expect Ding Ming and the other youngsters to understand. The true meaning of these words was that the Chu clan did not lack money at all. At least on planet TT-12, the Chu clan could be considered a wealthy clan. If the clan did not have any big goals, Chu Xiaoqing would undoubtedly have a beautiful life that most girls could only dream of. However, the Chu clan's manager did not think so. Chu Xiaoqing's talent was outstanding, and if she could go to the front lines to kill enemies in the future and establish outstanding military achievements, the Chu clan would undoubtedly have a reputation and a good reputation. The clan's business would no longer be limited to shopping malls, schools, and amplification products. If they operated it well, it was completely possible for them to enter the political world. If they were lucky enough, it was not impossible for them to enter the eyes of the imperial family. These were all secondary. The key was that Chu Xiaoqing was willing to go to the fertile chalk star system, which was why Sister Zhong had taken the initiative to follow Chu Xiaoqing. Chu Xiaoqing suddenly said, "You can't go to the front lines just because you want to?" Yu Man humbly asked, "Are there any conditions that need to be met?" Chu Xiaoqing nodded and said, "Under normal circumstances, most origin energy warriors will join the army and obey the military's arrangements. After undergoing strict training, they will have to serve for at least 7 years before they can apply to go to the front lines." To a warrior, 7 years was not a long time. Many people cultivated for 7 years and still might not be able to advance from a beginner warrior to an intermediate warrior. Ding Ming muttered to himself, "Does Miss Chu really want to go to the front lines as soon as possible?" Chu Xiaoqing continued to nod. "Ding Ming, I told you before that my time is very precious." Ding Ming said, "Is there any other way to go to the front lines?" Chu Xiaoqing's eyes quickly lit up. "That's right. As long as you can complete a special mission issued by the military on your own, the Empire will treat it as a special contribution. If you have the strength to fight, you will be able to be sent there." Her words were simple, but how could the others not understand the great difficulty in her words? A special mission issued by the military? Even if it wasn't a battle, it was probably not something that a normal warrior could complete on their own. The danger level might not be any lower than when they had escaped from Dome Planet. Ding Ming and she were both origin energy users. To put it bluntly, they could only bully a normal person. They might not even be able to defeat a mecha on a warship. How could they possibly complete a special mission at this level? Ding Ming thought this, but he could not say it out loud. Instead, he asked, "Does Miss Chu mean that you want me to join the military?" "I hope that your general direction is to serve the Empire," Chu Xiaoqing said. "Once you join the military, there is a high chance that you will have to go to the front lines. Since Ding Ming is going to go to the front lines one day in the future, why don't you go earlier?" Ding Ming smiled. "Most people are afraid of going to the front lines. I feel that I am no exception. To be honest, I have been afraid of death many times." Chu Xiaoqing smiled as well. "But Ding Ming, you are not an ordinary person." Her smile looked a bit sly. Little Rascal suddenly said, "I'm worried that Sister Zhong might have seen through some clues about you, right? With her strength, it's not strange for her to see through me," Ding Ming said quietly. "But she definitely won't be able to see through the K-virus," Little Rascal said solemnly. "In any case, no matter what happens, you must not reveal anything about the K-virus." Ding Ming nodded. "Of course." Seeing that the atmosphere had fallen silent, Sister Zhong took the initiative to speak. "Student Ding, Xiaoqing's intention is actually very simple. She hopes that you can join her team and complete this mission together." Yu Man asked curiously, "What kind of mission is it?" Sister Zhong smiled. "If Ding Ming is sure to join, we will naturally tell him. This mission obviously needed to be kept a secret. Only outsiders would know about it." Ding Ming muttered, "What does Miss Chu need me to do?" This question was asked in a very tactful manner. To put it bluntly, since they were acting so mysterious, what benefits could he possibly get? Chu Xiaoqing smiled. "Ding Ming, since the events of the past 2 days have already happened, you should understand by now, right?" Why do I sometimes choose to go to the dojo to practice? Of course, Ding Ming understood. There were too many inexplicable quarrels when staying in school to cultivate. Cultivation was very easy to be interrupted. Even Yu Man was harassed by Jeannie Chen. A beauty like Chu Xiaoqing would probably be harassed even more. Since he was annoyed, he might as well stay away. Chu Xiaoqing continued, Ding Ming, if you are willing to join my small team, at least in terms of cultivation facilities and supplies, there won't be any problems at all. Little Rascal immediately became excited. That's right. Her family owns that Anvil Corporation. Her family definitely doesn't lack money. Ding Ming, if you join, there will undoubtedly be a lot of benefits. At least we won't have to worry about nutrient solutions. Ding Ming was indeed a little tempted, but he didn't think too far ahead for the time being. Miss Chu, thank you very much for your kindness, but I still need time to think about this matter. Chu Xiaoqing nodded in appreciation. It's okay. This is a big matter. Naturally, you need to think about it seriously. However, I hope that you could decide before the end of the exam. Will you go or not? I hope you can give me an answer. Ding Ming nodded. Miss Chu, don't worry. I will definitely give you a clear answer. Chapter 94. In the deep and boundless outer space, in the eternally tranquil universe, a gigantic ship was quietly sailing under the starry skies, like a gigantic meteor slowly drifting through the universe. This was no ordinary warship, but an incomparably massive starship with a length of 7,000 meters, a height of 300 meters, and a width of 1,200 meters. It was equipped with neutron cannons, ion cannons, and 13 types of conventional weapon systems. There were 24 loading points, 128 ship slots, and 2,300 machine slots. In addition, this interstellar warship named Ocean Sky Pole Island was also equipped with tens of thousands of combat robots, humanoid mechs, and regular personnel. In the true sense of the word, this was a steel fortress in space, and its existence was practically enough to contend against a small international space station. The hull of the Ocean Sky Pole Island was similarly imprinted with a unique and eye-catching symbol. A perfectly straight and sharp longsword, the blade emitted a cloud-like crystal flame, giving off a valiant and sacred feeling. This was the symbol of the Holy Grail Federation, and, very clearly, this starship was from the Federation. At this moment, it was silently hovering above the transport ship Black Gold 3, and compared to it, Black Gold 3 was like a little rabbit under the feet of an elephant. Beneath Black Gold 3, the dome planet had now returned to its original color. It had been 2 months since the solar eclipse, and the Earth was once again dyed with the 5 colors of the sun, and at the same time, it appeared bizarre and variegated. The starship's quantum radar was currently scanning the Earth, and it was the same as before. This desert was desolate and scorching hot, with absolutely no signs of life to speak of. However, what was different from before was that the once bustling Black Gold base had long been reduced to ruins. Dilapidated fences and dilapidated walls were everywhere, and the ground was littered with eerie white bones. That catastrophe brought about by the solar eclipse didn't leave a single survivor. The hologram faithfully recorded every scene, and a young man stood in front of the screen, observing these scenes with great interest. He was approximately 8 meters tall, but his body was rather well proportioned, and one could tell that he was a person who was usually well trained. The man's face was extremely handsome. Below his sword-like eyebrows were a pair of large eyes that were extremely spirited. Below his tall nose was a pair of lips that were as thin as a blade. The corners of his lips were slightly raised, causing his face to always maintain an expression of a smile that was not a smile, giving people an unfathomable feeling. His attire was even more elegant. His black windbreaker and shiny leather shoes gave him a maturity that did not match his age. His every movement was filled with an indescribable steadiness. Apart from this light screen, the other facilities in the room the man was in were completely different from most warships. There were no metallic technological devices, No dazzling control panels or photon processors. In the middle of the room, there was a foggy artificial fountain, surrounded by a variety of unknown rare potted plants. The walls were made of crystal glass, which could change the image at any time. Outside the glass was a transparent water world, where all kinds of beautiful and wonderful sea creatures were swimming. If this room wasn't inside the Sea Skies Pole Island, one would suspect that it was an aquarium viewing area. After an unknown period of time, the AI system in the room suddenly issued a notification. Captain Jiahua and Captain Fell's request an audience. The young man was still observing without turning his head. He just casually waved his hand and said, "Let them in." The age difference between the two people who came in was a bit big. Jiahua was younger, and the straight officer uniform on his body made him look handsome and threatening. He was both energetic and full of dignity. It could be seen that he was also a person used to giving orders. Fells, on the other hand, had a head full of white hair and a face full of wrinkles, but his uniform showed his identity, Captain. This was clearly an experienced captain. In a long space voyage, experience was undoubtedly a strong guarantee to deal with all kinds of unexpected situations. Since these two people were requesting an audience, the young man in the room obviously had a higher status. He still did not turn his head, still observing the ruins of the outer walls of the black gold base, but his tone was slightly depressed. "It's been so many days. There should be some results, right?" Jiahua immediately stepped forward. "Master Feng, after a lot of digging and screening, we've confirmed that no one in the black gold base survived that day. Everyone was martyred." Master Feng's tone was a bit regretful. "Julie was also martyred." Jiahua nodded. "Yes, Miss Julie also did not escape that disaster. At the time, she was heavily injured and deep underground. We've carefully searched, and the DNA of the corpse matches 100%. It's confirmed that it's Miss Julie herself." Master Feng turned his head. "Did you find any spirit bodies?" Jiahua lowered his head and said, "Sorry, we didn't detect any spirit body fluctuations. Based on the situation at the time, Miss Julie's chances of survival are very low." Master Feng's tone became gloomy. "Unfortunately, I lost one of my generals." Jiahua was very puzzled. "Master Feng, Miss Julie was only a high-level origin ability user." "You're wrong." Master Feng faintly looked at him and said meaningfully, "Everyone has their corresponding value. When a specific person is placed in a specific environment, their effect is unimaginable." Jiahua found it hard to understand these words. Fortunately, Master Feng continued to explain. "If you compare Miss Julie to Brother Hua, you can't be compared. However, she could come to the black gold base, and you couldn't. That's her value." Jiahua could understand this. Julie, as an origin ability user, naturally would not attract the attention of the outside world when she came to black gold base. However, Jiahua, as an advanced warrior, could not do so. His every move was being watched. It was inevitable that the outside world would have some unfriendly suspicions when he came to Dome Star. Jiahua respectfully lowered his head. "Thank you for your advice." At this moment, Fayers took 2 steps forward, holding a broken and tattered wrist device. "Young Master Feng, fortunately, Miss Julie's wrist device has been found. However, the wrist device has been severely damaged, and the internal information recorded is incomplete. After our best efforts to repair it, we can only repair it to this extent." Master Feng said, "Let me see." The screen in the room quickly connected to Julie's wrist device. It recorded the first-person view of Julie. The range of the images was very large, and only a few of them were clear. Most of them were scattered fragments. Master Feng was clearly having a hard time watching. He frowned and said, "Ask Miss Bing to come over." He said this to the AI system. The system quickly replied, "Miss Bing is currently on the bridge, checking the data." Master Feng actually did not show any impatience. He was very calm. "How long do I have to wait?" The system's voice said, "The estimated waiting time is 40 minutes. Master Feng nodded. "Okay, I understand." Jiahua and Fels could not help but look at each other. They had long heard of this Miss Bing, but unfortunately, they had never seen her in person. It was said that Miss Bing was Master Feng's secretary. No matter where he went, Master Feng liked to bring her along. There were rumors in the company that Master Feng and Miss Bing's relationship was not normal. However, there were also rumors that Miss Bing was Master Feng's brain. The two of them were more inclined to the latter. This was because it had always been others waiting for Master Feng. There was no precedent for Master Feng waiting for others. However, Master Feng actually had the patience to wait for someone for 40 minutes. This showed how important this person was to him. Logically speaking, there was no need for them to meet each other in person. They could just use a long-distance transmission to communicate. However, young Master Feng insisted on waiting. If he wanted to wait, then Jia Hua and the others could only stand and wait. Thus, this feeling was not very pleasant. Seeing the unnatural expressions on the two's faces, young Master Feng smiled and said, "I'm sorry for wasting your time by making you wait with me." The two of them quickly lowered their heads and replied, "Master Feng, you are too serious. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."